Welcome to the Pride to Detroit PODcast, PrideToDetroit.com, Pride to Detroit on Twitter, Pride to Detroit on Facebook. You know where to find us. You know where we are at, and you know what we're about, because every week we bring you the best damn Detroit Lions news we can, analysis, entertainment, and everything that matters to Lions fans, including some stuff that isn't strictly Lions. I think on this show we will be talking a lot of Super Bowl. We'll be talking about some stuff on how it relates to the Lions, but we are football fans nevertheless. And I had fun last night. I really did. Sometimes a ass whooping is just what the doctor is asking for. And while this wasn't 38, this was up there with Broncos Seahawks. I think the ass whooping entertained me a little bit longer than Broncos Seahawks did. There's some factors to that, and we'll talk about what that all means for the Lions, because Carly Simon, you can take the break because the song is about us. Joining me, as always, Jahmyr Roseman, the fearless leader at Detroit Online. Hi, Jeremy.
Hey, what's up, Chris? You know what? I kind of enjoyed the Super Bowl too. I think part of it was because I picked the Eagles and seemed to be in the minority, which was a little bit surprising to me. But
we'll talk about that in a second, because I do think as the week went, I was starting to feel that tide towards Go Birds happening, and it was interesting. I'm Chris Perfett, by the way, at Chris Perfett on Twitter, at Perfett on Blue Sky. Joining me is the only man who has beaten my tally site spread picks for the year, Ryan Matthews, the Rock God, at Ryan_POD. Me and Ryan, we both finished in the top 10 this year with tally site, even though I despise that site and the pings you send out for our picks.
Well, you're welcome. Weird way to say thank you, but I think that this game wasn't as wacky as Broncos Seahawks, because you guys remember how that game started off with the safety on the very first play. Yeah. It never felt that zany. It was just really sad to watch the Chiefs in this game. Like it was the horse that was ready to go to the glue factory, like right after halftime.
Yeah, like I tweeted out, like I felt really, really bad for Chiefs fans that were born in 2025. That had to be hard to watch.
Any kindergartners from the Kansas City
feel
area.
like I did up until about halftime. I kept like, all right, the Chiefs can still pull the horseshoe out of their ass on this one. And they did have the call, like that very weak OPI call to start the game too, where I'm like, okay. Even Roger Goodell broke down was saying, yeah, there's, we have to address this. Like, I don't know, like they felt rattled by the official thing, but at the same time, I had been talking with my friend Bo, who I do FSR stuff with, the entire weekend, and like we just kind of were ignoring for a long while that this is the number one defense on one side here with a really good run game, because we're all just kind of like, yeah, it's still Patrick Mahomes on the other side, and that's what we've been raised to believe, is like all that stuff doesn't matter if you have a great quarterback. And then it just never happened. It just never happened. Not only that didn't happen, Jeremy, I think they had 17, 18 net yards in the first half.
Yeah, no, it was a slaughter. Through three quarters, it was a complete slaughter. Like, not even close.
But it did happen, Chris. Like, they won 15 games. Like,
I know.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
they won an awful lot of football games in the regular season, and then the bottom fell out in a way that nobody could have imagined. They were 1.5 point favorites coming into this game. And, like, I thought Nick Wright brought up a good comparison to, like, because, I mean, the clear takeaway is the Eagles' defensive line, and we're going to talk about that in the podcast later, but, like, he compared it to the last time that you saw this dominating of a performance from a defensive line was 2007, Giants versus Patriots, where it was truly David versus Goliath in that game, though, right? Like, this game was not billed as David versus Goliath. This game was billed as Patrick Mahomes is an alien. The refs are on Kansas City's side. Are the Dirty Birds going to be able to get it done? And it's like, I was shocked. I was truly shocked with how this game, like, I was sad. Like, it was sad how, like...
How can you be sad?
It was sad seeing Patrick Mahomes take that kind of abuse. Like, he was so out of sorts that, like, that guy did not resemble the kind of guy that everybody was ready to crown him had he won this game. Had he won this game, people were talking about he's the greatest quarterback of all time, and there's no debate.
Yeah.
And now that door is very
You
much
got people
open.
questioning his legacy today after
Yeah,
this kind of a blowout, which
that
seems
is
insane.
Crazy.
That's an overreaction, but still,
Super Bowl Monday
that's
morning
when you get
quarterbacking.
sacked 6 times and like 5 more QB hits on top of that, and you get picked off twice, one going for a pick 6 to a white CB. Like, I'm not going to say Patrick Mahomes lost them that game. That entire offense was doing nothing out there.
True, but
Nothing.
he looked rattled in a way that is very, very unlike him, right? Like he was missing a couple really easy, check down throws that would have extended drives in ways that we see him do all the time. We saw him a couple times like escape pressure and do some crazy stuff, but then it would end with an overthrow, or it would end with an interception, or it would end with him getting dragged down from behind. It was odd. I wouldn't say sad. It was odd. It wasn't sad to me. And to the larger point here, us Lions fans who all season were like, we just want to have the best record in the NFL, and the Chiefs are pulling out game after game after game. Essentially, we all kind of thought the Chiefs were at least a little bit fraudulent, right? Like the Lions were blowing teams out. The Chiefs were skirting by missed field goals, blocked field goals at the end of the game, and weird calls and things like that. And this game almost felt like a little bit of vindication there, where it's like, y'all weren't real. Like I realize you got to where you did and you beat some good teams along the way, and I'm not saying the Chiefs were terrible, but they weren't the Chiefs team that has made this team a dynasty over the past 6 years. They were the worst version of themselves this year, and it showed up.
I think what we saw was a team that was over-reliant on the blitz through a lot of the year, over-reliant on a lot of luck to kind of go their way, and sometimes not for the refs to help them, but for the teams just to willingly start punching themselves in the face to lose a game. And the Chiefs, I'm not going to say they lucked out to get here, but I think there was kind of this nagging sensation always in the back of people's head that the Chiefs are kind of getting away with something here, that they haven't actually been fully tested. And I think just because it was Patrick Mahomes, we just kind of ejected those thoughts from our heads, because that's what 20 years of Super Bowls have taught us, Ryan, because I think people, even into the second half, kept waiting for 28-3, because ultimately at the end of the day, I can keep talking up this other team over here. I can keep talking about Jaylen Carter, and I can talk about Sweat, and I can talk about Saquon Barkley, but it doesn't matter, because we're constantly told for 25 years this is a quarterback-driven league, and they still have the best quarterback on the other side, and they've got a blitz-happy defense that has decided out of the gate, lock down Saquon Barkley, let's let Jalen Hurts beat us, and suddenly Jalen Hurts was beating you. And then suddenly Patrick Mahomes wasn't doing Patrick Mahomes things. Suddenly the logic, the logic we've had for so long that a quarterback uber alles trumps everything is suddenly not good enough in us. Patrick Mahomes himself was not good enough to beat the Eagles, who are the better team, top to bottom. Better defense, better O-line, better running back across the board. Was Jalen Hurts better than Patrick Mahomes? No, but they challenged him to beat him, and they fucking beat them.
Yeah. For clarification, I meant like sad as in like pathetic. Like like truly didn't feel like he could even get out of his own way. And right. I think watching it live, the Eagles are getting so much pressure on Patrick Mahomes that you're almost like, dude, throw the ball, like get rid of it, make a play, do something. And then you realize that they racked up 6 sacks and didn't blitz once. And then it's like, oh, okay, I understand why you didn't want to throw it against 7 defenders who are dropping into coverage on every snap. And I mean, I did get the sense that even after he threw the pick 6 and it was 17-0, it's like, okay, the Chiefs are going to get the ball. If they can score and somehow get to halftime at, 17-7, they're going to get the ball back. This is going to be a ball game. Like this is, and then they went 3 and out, and it was like, oh, and then even when they forced a punt against the Eagles, it was a pick on the very next play, and it's like, oh no, this is not going to be that. This is not going to be what I thought it could have been.
Yeah, and I'll like. Out of all of the possible outcomes of this game, the Eagles winning, I don't even know what the final score was. I left with 8 minutes left, but whatever, they win by 3 touchdowns essentially, at least, or
It was 40 to
It was
22.
It was 40 to
okay.
22, but it was 40
So,
to 6 with
right.
not much time left.
going into
Right.
the fourth quarter, and like Kenny Pickett was coming in at quarterback for the Eagles.
Did he come in at the end?
He logged snaps. He logged snaps.
Well,
Yeah,
good for him.
He played on 2 series. Yes.
But for the Eagles to put that much of a butt whooping on the Chiefs with Saquon essentially being a non-factor, that to me is maybe the most shocking thing that happened. And it's not because I didn't have faith in Jalen Hurts, and the Eagles do have a good receiving core, a decent receiving core. I just didn't think that was the path. Like, the Chiefs didn't have a very good run defense all year, but it's clear, like Chris said, like that was their game plan, is let's take Saquon Barkley out of the game and see if Jalen Hurts can beat us. And the answer was, yeah, he can. Now, let's also be completely clear, like, he was aided by his defense quite a bit.
100%.
Got short fields, got a free pick six in there.
Yeah. And I don't think the Chiefs defense played terrible last night. Like, they certainly did what they set out to do, like you said. Like, Saquon Barkley was a non-factor.
Yep.
But I do think that is part of complementary football, as we talk about this with the Lions, Jeremy. Like, and again, this is why I feel like we're starting to hit this point where it's like, if you have the better team across there, but they don't have the better quarterback, maybe that latter fact shouldn't trump the former at this point. I think that's what we're kind of getting to, and I think that, if we want to talk about us as Lions fans for it, like, take that away. We're seeing great defense and great roster building being what's carrying the day in these kind of matchups now. Because the Eagles ground the Chiefs down to nothing.
Really nothing. I mean, that was the most pathetic the Chiefs have looked in a very, very long time. It was, in that sense, it was shocking. But I did pick the Eagles win. I've been saying all playoffs that, like, hey, the Eagles have a really good offensive line. They have a really good defensive line. Let's not just be like, well, Nick Sirianni.
Go Birds.
And then
for sure. But I also thought, well, Nick Sirianni and also Andy Reid and also Patrick Mahomes, and they had won 15 games. You know what I mean? Like, yes, they had skirted by, but they won in those moments. And it's like, are you really led to believe that all of those really close wins were you knowing how to win, or you're really not as good as you used to be, right?
It's hard to parse that. For sure.
And let's be clear too. Like, the Eagles took some time to really kind of get going this season too. There was definitely a few times where they would be very kind of up and under, like, kind of uneven at points. They'd still pull out some wins, but then they'd have stuff like that Commanders loss they took. And I think what happened was, it's like, look, they came out at the right time for the playoffs.
Remember when the Eagles almost lost to the Panthers?
I know.
When Leggett dropped that touchdown pass that would have won them the game.
Yeah. Teams
have off games.
And Carolina was running hot then.
They were.
Can I do like the hypothetical though, if the Eagles had gotten absolutely destroyed in this game, because it's been very open that Kellen Moore is going to take the Saints job. Would that have been like a Matt Patricia type of situation? You're just staring at him getting his butt whooped. It's like, this is your new head coach. Would you have had questions then?
Well, I know what the narrative would have been. He's got his eyes on that Saints. He's got his eyes on that Saints job. It's not locked into the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if you're a Saints fan, you're still looking at Kellen Moore that way.
I think it's more like you got to look at Mickey Loomis this way, but hey, they've got bigger problems.
Well, that's the other thing too. I think Howie Roseman deserves a crap ton of praise for how good that Eagles team is drafting, how good they're filling in holes, how good they've managed to stay good for a long time. I mean, we point to last year as like, oh wow, the Eagles really fell off last year, and they were like 11-5.
Yeah, people were talking about firing Sirianni for double-digit wins.
Right.
I was part of that too, though. Like, I thought at any moment the bottom could fall out and Sirianni could get fired, but all of us were pointing and laughing at the Eagles last year when they got bounced by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah,
right.
Like, there was rumors of, like, AJ Brown is going to boxing fights instead of showing up to when he should, and it's like, okay, like, the bottom could fall out of all of this in a hurry.
Yeah.
And it didn't.
I mean, and they lost some key pieces to, like, age, and like, they lost the best center in
Kelsey.
football. They lost Fletcher Cox.
Yeah.
They
Nakobe
moved
Dean
on
got
from
hurt.
They moved on from Hassan Reddick, a double-digit sack guy for them 2 straight years, and just went chugging along and not only didn't lose a step, took a big step forward. It was phenomenal what they've done. And for as much as we all love Brad Holmes, and Brad Holmes is fantastic, and I wouldn't trade him for probably anybody short of Howie Roseman, but I think Howie Roseman has proven over maybe the past decade that he's the best general manager in football.
To do the things they did, get Quinion Mitchell last year in the draft, and he's been a revelation at CB. We kind of knew he was going to be that good coming out of Toledo, but I think what I'm hearing from you, Jeremy, is that you would prefer longevity for your team and a long-term stay good front office approach, which is what the Eagles have done under Howie Roseman, versus say, I don't know, blowing everything for the Super Bowl or bust F them picks approach.
Do you want to jump into this right now?
Me and Ryan have a lot to discuss when it comes to the ads and/or Kendrick, but I did notice quite a bit of people trying to float the idea that the Eagles winning proves that you have to go all in, when I feel like the opposite is true. And again, not to name names, but I think some of the examples given by certain people's trying to say the Eagles represent an all-in approach. I'm sorry, Saquon Barkley is not the same as giving up multiple picks as to get Myles Garrett. I didn't understand that. I didn't understand that one at all, considering Barkley was to be had in fairly cheap for them, and
3 years,
on a 3-year contract. I mean, it did lead to people once again trying to run out the running backs aren't important argument because of his particular cap hit, which at this point, 877, come on now. But I don't think it's the same. Right. Them going and getting Barkley was not it was transformative for their offense, but that was not a push all of your chips into the center of the table move by Roseman. Not in the least. Roseman's approach to the Eagles has been to do just what we keep saying that Brad Holmes should do. You want to make sure you can get double-digit wins every year. You're going to weather the storm. They lost both coordinators last year, but guess what? They still came back. They still have a lot of young players on that roster. Jaylen Carter was a monster last night. They have a lot of young players on the roster as much as they do the veterans, and they just keep reloading.
I mean, they did it the right way. Going back to even last draft, you bring up Quinion Mitchell. It's okay, they have Darius Slay, and it's kind of the model that Detroit adopted this year when they traded and got Carlton Davis. They drafted Terrion Arnold. They're trying to establish longevity, but I think that they're both trying to do it in similar ways. They can patch things up here or there with free agency signings, and theirs just happened to be a marquee one in Saquon Barkley. I think the key question in all of this, though, and why I don't understand the Brad Holmes must do whatever he has to do in order to get Myles Garrett by any means necessary, is because what is all of this tethered to? What is the Detroit Lions' success tethered to at this point? Is there a player who's on a rookie contract that, once it expires, then all of a sudden the cap is going to be, impossible to deal with? They're not stuck on the rookie quarterback window. They're not stuck on bad contracts at this point, right? They've invested in players that I think most of us believe in Penei Sewell and in Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I mean, is Jared Goff perfect? No, but Jalen Hurts isn't perfect, right? Imperfect quarterbacks. And I think that was one of the biggest winners from last night was imperfect quarterbacks can win Super Bowls too. It's not always just Patrick Mahomes. So I guess that's the question, Jeremy, is why do the Lions have to go all in right now and throw caution to the wind to get Myles Garrett? Is their window about to close?
I don't think so. I think what has made the Lions build fantastic is its balance, right? It's its balance with big contracts with young guys on rookie contracts. And that's what we're headed towards. There needs to be an even stronger balance between those two when the cap hits for Goff and Hutchinson and Amon-Ra and Penei and Aleem all hit. But I get everyone watches that game and everyone comes away with the same correct conclusion that, wow, that Eagles defensive line won them the game. Right? That's the conclusion that everyone comes to and says, I want that. Give me that defensive line. And the jump in logic from there is where I don't necessarily agree with people, which is like, hey, we need a great offensive line by any means necessary. So go get Myles Garrett. So go get Max Crosby. So get whoever else is out there. That's not what the Eagles did at any point. And I already put it out on Twitter. I wrote a whole article about it. That defensive line is filled with internal guys, first-round draft picks, year after year after year, investment after investment after investment. They are spending so little money on that defensive line because they have spent so much draft capital on it. And the Lions they don't have that luxury anymore because Aleem is on a new deal. Aiden's going to get a new deal this offseason. And so you can't throw in another big contract on there and just spend all of your money on the defensive line. In theory, in a capless world, throw all your money on the defensive and offensive line. Yeah, that's how you build, 100%. But I just don't feel like that's plausible in Detroit. And it's certainly not how the Eagles have built. Like, if you are putting the Eagles, the Super Bowl champions, as that is the model, we got to do that. We got to get their defensive line. Well, their defensive line was the way it was, not because of any star player. They don't even have a star. They don't have a guy who has more than 8 sacks on the season. They don't have a guy with over 60 pressures. Mm-hmm. The Lions theoretically have 2 of those guys already. So what you do is you continue to add guys to that depth, add guys to that rotation. First round picks, second round picks, third round picks, fourth round picks, seventh round picks, whatever it is. And listen, the Lions have tried that strategy and they've made a couple hits, right? But I think part of the reason they aren't where the Eagles are at is because they haven't hit at the rate that the Eagles did. They didn't hit on Levi Onwuzurike. They didn't hit on Josh Pascal in the way that some of these Eagles guys are.
They've hit very well too. It's just,
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, we're still talking about a team that no matter what, it's kind of hard to tell what they have on defense when it was so damn banged up.
Right.
For a long time too.
That too. That's the thing that's kind of driving me crazy a little bit is like the further away we get from the Lions season, we're all just like completely forgetting that the defense was decimated and this team was top 5 in both offense and defense deep into November. And now we're acting like they need to change strategies drastically. They need
arguably
to reverse course. They need to go all in. Like, they were where they needed to be halfway through the season, and then everything fell apart to the fault of no one.
No one. And it started with losing a player who was probably running away with Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah,
in Hutchinson.
I think that's part of all of this is that nobody has seen Aiden Hutchinson play football in 4 months, so they kind of forget what they had in that before his tib-fib got wrapped around somebody else's leg. Like, that's just a freak accident, and it's I don't know. It's something that I think I look at, and the more that I look at it, the more upset I get, and the more I beware the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, I think this offseason we're gonna appreciate less and less what the Lions had. It's why I kept like banging that table. Appreciate what you have right now because the cynicism will hit you a little hard. Not to go on the cynicism, but Ryan, if we can take Brian J, if we could take a couple minutes just about the rest of the goodies around the Super Bowl. I thought this was the worst year of. I mean, I think commercials guy is good, dead and buried at this point, unless you're like Darren Ravel charging at the windmill once again. But I cannot tell you a single ad I saw from this thing. That's probably for the best.
Ravel had one of my favorite tweets of the night.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He said, despite the Chiefs losing this way, this has to be a great opportunity for Taylor Swift to write a great song.
Isn't that just a recycled version of his most viral tweet, which is, I hate this for our country, but it's tremendous content?
It's tremendous content. Yeah,
I hate this for Taylor Swift, but it's tremendous content.
It really sucks for Travis Kelce, but this is going to be tremendous content.
Did you want to talk about Ken? Oh, yeah, sorry, go on, right, Jeremy.
I was just going to say Totinos. I didn't even see the Totinos ad, but I saw it on... When did it air? Did it air in the fourth quarter?
It was like third quarter, and the only reason I knew it was on because it had an extremely loud shriek in it that got me to actually look up from making my shrimp. It was really loud.
Yeah, the one where the alien dies is better though.
Yeah, and that's just an internet exclusive. They didn't show that one.
Yeah, I don't think they showed that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
But shout out the Detroiter boys, making big time.
Like Gen Z too. Like this was like the first wave of like Gen Z has made its way into marketing.
Has it? Because I felt like when I saw was the Mountain Dew commercial that had Seal.
Seal is a seal.
Yes, but that
no, that's not a good example.
No. I'm not saying I thought that wasn't Gen Z. I thought that was specifically only for elder millennials who remember the Batman Forever music video. That because why else would Seal be singing "Kiss from the Rose"? Who else besides people who watch the Batman Forever music video remember "Kiss from a Rose" in 2025?
100%. That's fair. I was more so talking about, was it the ad for Tubi where everybody had like skin cowboy hats?
Oh God,
and, like,
yeah, that was terrifying.
Skin wizard hats.
Yeah, that was disturbing.
I was like, oh, okay, yeah, Gen Z's here. All right, welcome to the party, guys.
I was terrified this was all going to be AI ads, and there was only like one or two. And once again, I still don't know what they do, what they're supposed to help me with, and they just make me feel gross about the human condition. So,
was there any crypto commercials last night? Because wild how, you know what I mean? I felt like that was all we saw, like, what, 3 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah.
And now Tom Brady is calling the Super Bowl because of...
Yeah, there was like AI Tom. Actually, that was the weirdest thing. It was before it. It was the AI Jimmy Johnson.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I had the
that
sound
was
off.
weird.
What was that about? He's not retiring, is he?
I think he is. It was him kind of like recounting his legacy.
Okay, because I know Terry Bradshaw says he's going to retire in like 4 years. I didn't realize if Jimmy was retiring, but that was very odd watching the AI Jimmy through the years meeting real Jimmy and stealing his soul.
Yeah, no, I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't even know what you're referencing. This was a pregame thing?
It was on the pre-show, yeah.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk, Ryan, at all about Kendrick?
Do we want to talk about Kendrick?
I think you said everything we need to say, right?
It was incredible. Top tier. One of the best halftime performances of all time. And I think it's only made better by the "that wasn't for me" crowd.
There is definitely becoming more and more of a divide in that way. I think those people would have complained anyway, though. Like
people,
anything short of like Morgan Wallen or Chris Stapleton or
Bruce.
Are you sensing a trend?
I am dreading that is coming though. Like,
definitely not Beyonce. No country out of Beyonce. But I don't know.
I think you have a chance that it might be like Red Hot Chili Peppers in LA in a couple of years. And that might be the last rock act ever. But like I thought this was great. I don't understand the people complaining or that nobody liked it when you then had an entire stadium who decided to sing along with lyrics calling a Canadian rapper a pedophile. That entire stadium popped at A minor.
I know why people don't like it. Because it doesn't have like the Katy Perry, like a huge lion or fireworks. Or like people expect this big, extravagant, bombastic performance. Oh, yeah. This was subtle. This was toned down. This was more about messaging than it is
this
fanfare,
was cheeky,
right?
This was cheeky. Samuel L. Jackson is like an Uncle Sam being like, "We can't have this. This is too ghetto."
Right.
It was a great. It was very cheeky.
I think that's my favorite part of it, though, is that it felt very much like a like hip hop being on center stage, much like it did with particularly like Kendrick's moment at the 2022 Super Bowl for the Bengals Rams. Like it felt like a really important seminal moment for hip hop because that dominated all of the summer. And then to see Serena Williams crip walking to her ex's public funeral.
I didn't even realize they were exes. I thought that was just a reference to when she was in the Olympics and she crip walked in. Like everyone was like, "Oh, are you crip walking? That's a gang thing."
Oh no, just layers. Just the fact that she's also from Compton and Kendrick's from Compton, and it's like that's not for no reason. You know what I mean? He wasn't having people show up just to, join in on the party. Like everything had something to it.
Yeah,
I don't know if it was
the one thing I want to say is that the same people that would be like, oh, like Taylor Swift's lyrics are so, you have to dissect them and they require to be analyzed and everything. But they're like, this Kendrick show is not for me. It's like, okay, just say it. Just say it. Say it out loud. Say the quiet part out loud.
I'll disagree with you about being a seminal moment for rap because I feel like we've had 8 of those already in the and even in the Super Bowl, it's not like this is, new treaded ground, but I think it was always a question of.
Yeah, but hip hop, not rap, not pop stuff.
Sure, but I think also, LA had their big show. And I know that was more old school stuff for it, but I think the question always was, I remember having a conversation with like a radio show coming into this Super Bowl where there was definitely some Gen Xers who were like, who's heard of Kendrick Lamar? Is that big at all? And again, all I need to point to is the fact that the entire stadium hit you with A minor. And it's like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I listen to a ton of Kendrick. I'm familiar with his stuff, but I listen to like a lot more synthy shit and European shit. But like, I at least know who he is. I at least understand the stuff he's been up to, and definitely the fact that he had the beef with Drake was, and very much so, front and center. And then even teasing it through the show, it's like, can I sing it? He likes to sue. Like that's what people were tuning in for. They were tuning in more than anything for the beef. They wanted the beef, and they got the beef.
Is this a segue?
It can be if you'd like to. I didn't even think of it like that. You are more savvy on these than I am. Something. I was just going to leave the last message for you about the beef, but if you'd like, I can tell you about Righteous Felon.
They need a Kendrick flavor.
Hip hop rap beefs. That's got to be an MF Doom song, I'm sure.
Needs to be like a humble sauce.
Well, that's not there, but we do have Soul Survivor, Teriyaki Balboa for the city of Philadelphia. I tuned into the police scanner last night. Several people were climbing on garbage trucks. There were fires in the middle of the street. There was an F-150 going the wrong way on a freeway. Barricades toppled all over the place. Philadelphia did not disappoint last night. And neither will Righteous Felon craft jerky and meat sticks. Each 2-ounce bag of jerky has 16 to 20 grams of protein. Each stick has 8 grams. If it's good enough for us, it'll be good enough for you too. They are based in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and they might be Birds fans as well. So if you buy some for them, say go Birds. Why not? Be a good sport about it. They use locally sourced, all-natural Black Angus beef, and they pride themselves on superior quality, revolutionary branding, and unique flavors that go beyond the stereotypical jerky offering. POD15 at checkout will get you 15% off your order. Big or small, get whatever you'd like. Throw it in the stash. Have yourself some meat. Have yourself some beef. POD15 at righteousfelon.com. When we come back on the Pride of Detroit POD cast, more from the Super Bowl, and also, I think our big topic, how to build the Lions into a Super Bowl winner. That's next.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions! How about that?
Hi, chat.
YouTube going off right now.
YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube is. We're in the Lions' pocket. We won't criticize the Lions at all.
Oh,
which is an interesting take for someone maybe tuning in for the first time. That would be my guess.
Very. I'm gonna go find all the hate mail and death threats we got when we did our Patricia episode way back.
What's Twitch? Can you tell these people what my nickname is?
I don't know what to say because quite literally, like over the course of the past 12 plus hours since, oh my gosh, no, I can't even. Ever since this whole defensive line stuff started, I saw people like literally responding, being like, Pascal, I know POD doesn't like him. It's like, well, that was actually my take, really. And
I just don't want to give up a bunch of fucking picks, and I don't think the Browns are fucking dealing him anyway.
That's really where we need to start having the conversation. Is the Browns aren't doing this? I'm not gonna. I shouldn't talk in such absolutes, but
yeah, that always gets you in trouble.
I want the fucking draft picks though. I want. No, sorry.
I'd be very surprised if the Browns are able to pull this off because of what it puts them in terms of their cap situation, because they've dug their heels in and said, hey, we don't want to do this. I don't care if you throw 2 first-round picks at us. We don't want this.
No, the picks are not useless. You're useless, Dr. Detroit. Shut up about this. Like, this is insane. Oh, the picks are useless. But motherfucker, we've built this team through picks. The Lions have built this team through picks. Like, I will take, and if they do give away their future for Myles Garrett, I will say it's a stupid idea.
The whole other thing is that the Browns, like, they really can't do this. Like, if I'm the Browns front office, there's two strategies here. One, you go talk to Myles Garrett and you say, hey man, we're going to do everything we can to get a quarterback and just try to be competitive this year. Like, we're going to try to get a guy. We're going to try to be competitive. You help us be the best version of ourselves. Option 2 is, okay, you can be Hassan Reddick and you can miss out on a game check and you're just going to sit at home, because it's not worth it to trade him for them, because they made a very, very stupid, dumb decision. And I would love to pile on for the fact that they signed Deshaun Watson to a entirely guaranteed contract instead of entertaining the thought of Lamar Jackson. And they've made their bed and now they have to lie in it. And it's really, it's nearly impossible if they want to be competitive next year at all whatsoever. Like, if they make that trade, how are they going to be competitive next year?
Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about relitigating some of Brad Holmes's draft picks in the next segment. Because there is an argument to be made. I even made it in the first segment that the Lions haven't hit on their defensive line picks like they should. Levi didn't work out and may or may not be coming back.
Right.
Pascal
but until he
lived
did,
up to expectation. What?
But I think
Levi did?
For Levi, like, it was injuries. Like, yeah, no, it
Sure.
sucks. Like, that was part of the pre-draft eval. That wasn't really, but it was the same thing with Josh Pascal. So maybe he learned a lesson in terms of drafting injured players.
Sure.
But
Sure.
also
I
he
also
did that
think
and got Jameson Williams out of it. So
I think he said very well on his linebackers. And that's kind of where a lot of this Lions pressure does come from sometimes, is how they use their linebackers. And I'm quite happy with who he has picked up for his linebackers. But, because that's not a DT, like, I'm not, like, I don't know. I'd like them to do better on those picks. But again, I'm not taking bullets out of the chamber.
I think there's only really one pick I can label an outright failure. And it's still a little bit of TBD, but it feels like Broderick Martin.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, it was a trade up. It was a 3rd round pick. That's a contributor for your team. And the fact that he's getting outsnapped by Mekhi Wingo is crazy. But, I mean, he also got Ali McNeil in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
We still also have Zadarius Smith on the roster right now. So suddenly, what? Are we just going to...
And I mean, like, listen, the Aiden Hutchinson pick, I know we can say, well, it's a 2nd overall pick. He, that didn't take much skill. There was plenty of debate to be had about those 3 guys at the top of the draft. And by all means, the Lions got the right of the 3. Like, we can't just, whatever. He picked
like, no question.
Pick.
Like, got by far and away the best out of those 3 players.
This is kind of what I hate about this kind of talk too, because it's like, if it's too high of a pick, suddenly it's like, oh, well, anyone could have picked that. And if it's too low, it's like, well, the pick is useless. It's not actually worth anything.
Can I remind you about 15 years of 2000s Lions history of having super high draft picks?
Low bar, but yes. There are plenty of teams that blow top 10 picks regularly. And we can't just dismiss the fact that he got Penei Sewell and he got Aiden Hutchinson. Those were not layup picks necessarily.
Yeah, keep going.
I just feel like once again, all of this, like, there's this sudden flood of like a need to critique basically over like 2 losses, over the Bills loss and over the Commanders loss.
Right.
And like, that is, I'm sorry, like, I know that's probably reality for this NFL team moving forward, but like, if suddenly 3 years hinges upon 1 game, That's not a serious analysis to me. It's just not serious.
Right.
It's
Well,
just
yeah,
not.
it's why every Monday morning I complain about the same thing, because the same thing happens every freaking Monday morning after a Super Bowl, which is like, you have to build like the Eagles. You have to build like the Super Bowl champ. That is the only successful way. You have to do what they do. That is the only path to success.
Well, I do think that has a little more.
There's half a dozen teams that had a good enough roster to win the Super Bowl. Only one can do it. And that does not mean one was necessarily built better. The cards just fell the way they did.
Assuming the Chiefs had won this game, I mean, we'd be back to the same old thing. It's like, how do you build a Super Bowl winner? Well, you just got to blow everything until you find the generational alien.
Right.
Blow up everything until you find the generational alien. Trade everything away and keep banging at quarterbacks.
And an
every year,
offensive
like Colin
guru
Cowherd.
for your head coach.
Yeah.
There are multiple ways to build. And has Brad Holmes hit every single pick and gotten the ideal choice every single time? Of course not. I just told you that Howie Roseman is a better general manager than Brad Holmes, and I believe that to be true. But you have to look beyond the best team. You have to look at, how have the Chiefs been drafting? How have the Ravens been drafting? How have the Packers been drafting? How have the Rams been drafting? Like, there are some hits for a lot of those teams, but there are plenty of, Josh Pascal type picks. There are plenty of, and I mean,
you bring up the Rams. I think the Rams are a great example of this. Like, look at what happened with their offensive line this year, where like Jonah Jackson was benched. Like, that was their big offseason acquisition in free agency, was Jonah Jackson. But like, then they also couldn't they couldn't figure out a guy they had drafted in Steve Avila, who like they were trying to play at center to start the year. Like, their line was a mess. It took them a good while for that, but they've definitely missed on some guys in that front.
Yeah,
Hell, the Eagles' big offseason move, if you're talking about money, it was not Saquon Barkley. It was it Huff?
Bryce Huff, yeah.
Bryce Huff. They
did
spent
hardly
more
anything.
He was a healthy inactive in the Super Bowl. Like, you miss. You do. It's okay.
Dude, there are a lot of Howie Roseman drafts from, like 2019. Andre Dillard, Miles Sanders, JJ Arcega-Whiteside, Sharif Miller, Clayton Thorson. Are any of those guys even on the roster anymore? And I know it's 2019, but like, there's got to be like one guy sticking around, right? No. Like, there are a lot of misses. Everybody miss.
I don't even think it's a matter of having someone opposite Hutch at this point, because the guy opposite Hutch right now is Darius Smith. Like, unless you're just deciding, let's not have him next year.
Plus,
Which,
I don't
like,
think,
at that point, that's like,
I don't
okay.
think you're representing our point, Dr. Detroit. Like, our point is, the Lions absolutely need to improve their defensive line. They need to improve their depth. They need to. The point we didn't get to, which I think is maybe needs to be underlined more than anything, they need more pass rush from their interior. They have a Lee McNeil, but part of the reason the Eagles are so impenetrable on defense, they've got a hell of a rotation on the interior.
And part of that, and we have to also stress this too, about how lucky they got with the Jaylen Carter pick. Like, the Jaylen Carter draft stock got completely tanked because of what happened with him on a personal level leading up to that draft. Like, suddenly a bunch of teams didn't want to touch Jaylen Carter for what he was involved with. And he fell right into their lap. There's what was that number? When did Jaylen Carter get picked? That would have been like, I think it was like a 13. Like, people were talking about him as like a top 10 pick. He goes
Did he
9th.
fall out of 10? Yeah.
No. He was 9th, but like, people were talking him top 5. Yeah. Like, there were people talking him as like the first defensive player off that board.
Yep.
And like, because of what happened right at the end, he just suddenly he's falling to the Eagles. And like, that's not something usually you get.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. When you get a starting left tackle in the 7th round.
Yeah. All right.
Pretty good.
Some of these, the Jaylen Carter stuff, we're going to talk more about Jack Campbell, Nolan Smith, J-Mo, Jordan Davis, Quinion Mitchell, all those stuff. We're gonna get to that in the next segment, so I don't want to talk too much about that ahead of time. And yeah, let's move on. I don't want to talk to one person in our chat the entire time. Let's give some other people some attention and thank a bunch of our subscribers, which I'm going to start doing now because there's a bunch of them. Starting with Chaco Bob Brisket Bowl. 52 months says, this is our year, let's go. Healthy Sweater, 43 months subscribed to the channel. Damian Smith on YouTube, £2. Super Chat says, Thursday night season kickoff at the link.
It's quite possible.
I've already seen that, and please no. The Lions have done that. It's old news. How about Eagles Rams? A repeat of
I was going to say, we already
round.
got, the 2 years ago, Lions got to have the defending Super Bowl champion with the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need
Eagles
to be
Rams.
served up every year.
Playoff rematch in a game that was incredibly close. Eagles Rams. That's my choice. Let's not open up on Thursdays. I don't want to enjoy that. Ice Cecil 41 says, just waiting for the Saints to hire Kellen Moore now. Certainly sounds like it's happening. I think either the Eagles president or GM said, like, yeah, that's going to happen. We're expecting that to happen. Kick Puncher 15 months says, need the Pistons and Red Wings to make the playoffs to help get through this offseason. Go Lions. Hey, they're both where they need to be right now.
Oh yeah.
Pistons aren't even in a play-in game, right? Like they're just the 6th seed.
I think so, and they're like a game and a half out of the 5th seed.
Hell yeah. Let's get the 4. Get some home games.
Let's go.
Maybe
Why not?
fill up that arena once in a while.
It looked pretty full the other night. I
Don't roll
do
your
have
eyes
to
at me.
say this was a very odd. I don't think I've seen a trade deadline so pointedly during the middle of Super Bowl week.
Well
But,
done.
Yeah. Especially when apparently, like, I think it looked like it had finally started to die down for a little bit. And then I think, was it Saturday? The news dropping. It's like, hey, yeah, the Lakers trade for Mark Williams is falling through, leaving them with no big whatsoever because the Hornets tried to pull a fast one on Mark Williams' health.
And then what quarter was it? The beginning of the 3rd quarter in the Super Bowl last night that the report came out about Anthony Davis's injury, like trying to just bury that. Like, oh yeah, Anthony Davis is going to be out a month.
I have not seen.
Wild.
I refuse to believe. I mean, I could see it because Adam Silver is an incredibly sycophantic, useless commissioner. But like, it's really hard for me to see this idea that Adelson is tanking the value of the Mavericks to move them to Vegas. I understand Vegas is the new hotness, but we're talking about ditching the 4th largest television market for the 40th.
It's another conspiracy theory.
I know, but like this is an apocalyptic move to drive away fans, to get rid of someone like Luka, and then just up and down be like, we didn't want to sign him because he was fat. And then also to put out a letter saying like, oh, Shaq worked hard, like admonishing Luka and talking about other players who worked hard, and you list Shaq on there, who was damn near 400 pounds while on the Lakers.
He carried that weight well, though, brother.
I know, but so does Luka. Who gives a fuck if Luka is 10 pounds over, and drinking a beer? He's still Luka Doncic and going to go off for 50 or 60 a night.
Yeah, but it also wouldn't surprise me that Adam Silver, who continuously will cite how popular the NBA is on social media, would orchestrate a trade deadline to be the same week as Super Bowl weekend.
Wouldn't we rather have Adam Silver than Raj? No, because look, I feel like Adam Silver racked up a pretty high score doing the most obvious thing handed to him by David Stern, which was get rid of Donald Sterling. But he's been everything. Like the exact same situation came up with Matt Ishbia of the Suns, or was it the previous owner before Ishbia? Either way, and he said jack all about it. Like,
what?
That isn't. Yeah.
What do people actually like? What has Roger Goodell done that people don't like?
He just bans people, like, I guess because of the hammer thing coming down hard on players for
but also
integrity of the game. Yeah.
but also coming down on them too lightly, like Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah.
That's fair.
And
It's
Ezekiel
a lot of
Elliott.
unevenness, and it's very inconsistent.
Those are things that are pretty far in the rear view at this point, but
It is, but I think to Chris's point, it's the inconsistency.
sure.
'Cause it's like, okay, so this is happening, but then J-Mo's getting 6 games.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
I think it is, you're put in a very weird spot though, right? Like where you have to quantify discretions. Like is how much is, Deshaun Watson's, how many allegations does it warrant a season-long suspension versus this? And I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Are we about to find out?
I don't know. It's great from Justin Tucker. Is that what we're going? Where we're going with this?
Yeah.
It's yeah. I don't know. I don't know how you do that. Like it's just weird and uncomfortable, and there's no right or wrong answer. I mean, there might be wrong answers, but I don't know if there is a clear right answer with some of this stuff.
I just can't imagine anyone standing by
really quick. The Addison stuff has not worked out. Like the legal process is not done, and so you're not going to get suspended until the legal process is done.
It's the problem in that he's been given the power in the first place, and the problem in that the media almost has become addicted to this idea that they immediately look to the commissioner and the league to do something moral, which they've never been equipped to do in the first place. So suddenly we're asking for a league to be a moral arbiter, sometimes even a judicial arbiter before a court has even ruled on anything. Which is why when you get wife batterers all the time in baseball, but because they have argued that shouldn't impact what they do on the field, it never becomes an issue up there. Because suddenly Rob Manfred doesn't have to go out and decide if, this relief pitcher over here gets 20 games or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know the baseball-ish of it. When do we get news on the Cam Sutton contract? Someone's going to have to dig and find it. I have no idea. It's not like something that the NFL is going to announce. I don't even know who to ask or timeline for that sort of stuff. Maybe you'll see it reflected in like the NFLPA salary cap report, but I don't have an answer for you. Let me get to some of these other alerts here, and then we'll freely talk about whatever. Big DMG, thank you for the 16 months on Twitch. Nick the Greek, 100 bits, says Chris Perfett is half Irish. Don't know what that's in reference to.
Nick the Greek, never mind.
Ryan Toledo, Detroit, 30 months, says sucks that Ben Johnson was so out of the door that he didn't have the Chiefs offense ready to play. Yevitz, 41 months, subscribe to the channel. J-Dubs, 47 months, says, sup, boys? What's up, J-Dubs? Das Gibb, 40 months, subscribed on Twitch. Thomas J. Hutchins, 24 months, subscribed. Nick the Greek, another 100 bits, says, who had a worse Super Bowl, Mahomes or Drake?
Not even close.
Yeah, I guess it's probably Drake still.
Not even close.
Mahomes
God,
has a
Mahomes
couple
lost
rings
a football game.
MS Borats, thank you for the follow. Steve, thank you for the subscription. First timer, Steve W, thanks for subscribing using your Twitch Prime, which is a reminder, you have Amazon Prime. Come over to Twitch, create a free Twitch account, link your Amazon Prime account, and you can subscribe to a Twitch channel every single month for free. You get one free sub. If you haven't spent it this month, come over here and spend it here. If you have spent it, catch us in a month. Either one's fine. It does not automatically renew, so if you are a subscriber every single month via your Twitch Prime, just double check right now. Maybe it's available to use again. Maybe you're not subbed. It's a free way to kick us some money that doesn't cost you a dang thing. JPook, 28 months, subscribe to the channel. Do Frogs Fart, 10 months, subscribe to the channel, says, Mustard! Kula, 27 months, says, next year's our year. Yes. If you were talking about the 2026 Super Bowl, but the 2025 season.
I hate it. I hate that the NFL doesn't do like every other professional sports league that spans one season to another.
Yeah.
They're the only league that doesn't do it.
Yeah.
I hate them.
I think it's just because the regular season used to end before the next year would start. Now instead, yeah, I had the same problem because we were trying to talk about. I was talking with a friend about Super Bowls the other day, and I keep talking about, I forget the number for the Super Bowl, but it was Ravens 49ers, and I keep calling it the 2012 Super Bowl, even though it took place in 2013, but it was for the 2012 season.
Right. So why are we doing that? Why are we just willingly confusing each other? Why can't we fix this? We can start. The change starts with us.
Do it.
We are the media.
Can we fix the play clock first? That's my first.
There's a whole list of things, and that has to be way down there because I don't think we have that much power.
No. I want to start the play clock revolution.
We need to talk about the score bug.
let me get through the alerts and then we can talk score bug too.
God.
Your boy Maroc 33 months subscribed to the channel. Wizard 47 months says 47, same amount of points the Lions are going to beat the Chiefs by in next year's Super Bowl. Goal lines. Imagine the Chiefs get blown out in another Super Bowl.
I would be shocked if the Chiefs make it to
Super Bowl hangover.
Another Super Bowl.
Ever?
In Patrick Mahomes' career.
Shut up. Shut up.
So here's the thing. They haven't had that break.
The dynasty is over.
They haven't had that break that the Patriots took yet. And I think there is definitely a point where the issue seems to be well, first off, they didn't see the Ravens at all this postseason. No matter how we skin it, they had a pretty easy walk through this. They got a banged up.
You think the Bills were an easy walk?
They definitely had them fixed up right.
I mean, the Texans weren't an easy walk, but officiating had something to do with that.
But the Chiefs never make it an easy walk. But can you tell me they really fought the more impressive teams in the AFC in these playoffs? Besides the Bills with Josh Allen, the rightful MVP.
Well, this is gonna bleed into our next segment, but I think there were only 3 legitimate teams in the AFC, and they had to face one of them. And they were the other one. So, yeah, they didn't face the Ravens, but...
That's fair. I just still don't. I don't think the Eagles are the best team in the NFC. I don't think they're the best team in the NFC. I still don't. That was another thing that was so upsetting about last night. Is the Chiefs were there for the taking.
Yes.
I don't think the Lions were getting past the Eagles, though. I had some people ask that question. The Lions would have beaten the Chiefs, but I'm like, you're skipping a step.
I said as much. I said that the Lions could play the Eagles 10 times and the Eagles would beat them 9 times. But there is some alternate universe where it just breaks their way and they could end up in the Super Bowl.
Do you think there's a team other than the Lions that were better than the Eagles in the NFC?
No.
Okay. So it was the Lions and the Eagles.
Yeah.
Okay.
I regret the Lions not being in the Super Bowl, not because the Chiefs were there for the taking, but because the Super Bowl was in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And you know how much this killed me watching this entire week. All those people down there, all that food. Mike Tanier wrote his newsletter on muffalettas. I wanted to go to the best food town in this goddamn country because that's what New Orleans is. It is so good. I've been there once in my life. I love New Orleans and I love their food.
Bummed that I wasn't down there.
That was a hell of a party down there from every picture out there.
And
all the reports. Yeah.
What I heard too, a lot of Lions fans down there. A lot of Lions
enjoy the gumbo.
That are
At
just
least enjoy the gumbo.
I already booked my ticket. I'm not leaving.
Well, I hope they didn't leave sad.
No
I hope
way.
they had some good food and some good drink and plenty of hurricanes.
That is sunk cost fallacy. I am not going down there. I'm good.
It almost seemed based on how that crowd was inside the stadium, there may have been more Lions fans there than Chiefs fans. 'Cause, man, that was such an Eagles-heavy crowd.
Were they the only ones singing Country Roads coming back from that commercial break? That was some real synergy going on there.
I caught myself. I wasn't watching the ad, and I was singing Country Roads in my kitchen while I was making the shrimp. And I turn around, And then I hear Kevin Burkhardt say, "This moment of unity inspired by Rocket Money," and I nearly threw my knife.
Couple more here, real quick, and then we'll get to score bug talk because everyone loves some score bug talk.
By the way, next year's Super Bowl, like from New Orleans to Santa Clara. Just fuck that.
Is it LA after that?
I
think
no, I think it's Vegas. No, is it Miami or is it
Vegas?
I think it goes like Santa Clara, Miami, then LA, but I could be wrong. No, wait, I think Atlanta is in there actually.
Locations.
No, okay. So it goes Santa Clara, SoFi, and then Atlanta.
Oh. Right again.
Yeah.
Kanish, thank you for the 3 months. Says, imagine a team winning a Super Bowl with 2 new coordinators. We missed the forest through the trees, Ryan.
Oh, well, you know what that means for this year's Lions team?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Kellen Moore, a veteran.
Did I get the idiom right that time?
No, that's why I was laughing because you still got it wrong. But no, that would mean that would mean the Lions are going to get punked by some scrappy Buccaneers-esque team this year.
No, because they had 2 new coordinators this year too.
I know, but there was a year of
we don't need nope. That year didn't happen. Nope.
All right.
They got the coordinators right their first try, as far as I remember.
Nope.
Cool. This is not history. This is fanfic now. I love it.
We do write that too.
RGA. Remember when I used to do a Lions? People hated it. Hated the idea where I did
they thought you were being serious, which just really
every Monday morning after a loss, I wrote a Lions this is the Lions.
I loved it. I fucking loved it.
The Lions won. Let me write how the Lions would have won.
I think that was a really bad. That was a Patricia year, I think.
Yeah, I was busy on Monday mornings because there was a lot of
But I'm just saying, I remember how demented they would get until suddenly it was last second wins or something realistic. But by the end of the year, you're writing about 40 burger blowouts.
Yeah. I'm just getting a lot of, this is pathetic. You should be hammering the team right now. I'm just trying to provide some levity when it's really sad out.
You know what provided me levity? And we missed it this year.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no. God, stop being a corporate shill.
Too many Super Bowl commercials. That's all I can think about.
What we missed this year and what we've missed quite recently, Comeback Trapper reminded me of. Jeremy didn't get to explain to us how squares work, Chris.
I was happy about that. Well, here's the thing, too. It's I feel like Jeremy's in a bad spot. Because as Comeback Trapper says, now we're living in a world where gambling is all over the place. Where people are talking openly about Xavier Worthy getting those yards in the second half to save parlays.
I miss Super Bowl squares mattering.
I know, but I'm just saying we open the floodgates. So what does these little dinky squares over here means when you've got people just trying to get parlay tickets in?
Don't say us. It's the oligarchs.
I know. Hey, listen, you don't think I didn't notice Kevin Burkhardt and Tom Brady openly discussing the Kool-Aid color?
I mean, not
self-awareness.
The Super Bowl wedding now starts before the game even begins with the dumb field goal garbage.
Oh yeah, the
kick of destiny or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what? Speaking of that, that's something we didn't do this year, Ryan, was the Super Bowl props. I think we forgot about it for a couple of years now.
Lions fans were so out on the Super Bowl this year. We didn't do any Super Bowl preview content at all on the website.
Don't play parlays. Don't play parlays.
Gambling's bad. Don't do it.
To spin off of that talk, and I know Chris has been here decades longer than I have, but can we say we have the Manning fatigue at this point? The Manning's fatigue? Can we say hey, maybe we dialed that one up a little too high? And we don't need to see the Mannings involved in every single NFL thing ever.
What were they involved in this year? I missed it.
They were the kick of destiny.
They were the kick of destiny.
Oh, I missed that completely. So
listen, I know I was asking for bad entertainment when I watched the 2-night event that is the Pro Bowl, but like events would finish, and rather than interviewing the people that finished the event, they would be like, all right, what did you think about that, Peyton Manning? What did you think? Like, after every single event, it was about them, not the people that were competing, and it was driving me crazy. I'm like, I don't
on a
care.
similar vein, I think the one thing that made me pull some of my remaining hair out of my head this week was how many people were going to the plate to try to defend the honor of Eli Manning not being in the Hall of Fame, when you had also left out Torrey Holt and Luke Kuechly. Like, there were definitely much bigger questions about people being left out than Eli fucking Manning.
My favorite tweet out of all of that, I'm pretty sure it was from Arif, and he just posted a side-by-side comparison of Eli Manning's career numbers to Matt Schaub's numbers, and Matt Schaub has better career numbers in the regular season than Eli Manning.
That's right.
You guys know I hate Hall of Fame talk.
Eli Manning is Broadway Matt Schaub.
I just hate that there is
I know.
I've never liked, oh, is he a first ballot guy? Because I feel like that's baseball shit. Like, I don't care what ballot a guy gets in for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but also like this sudden limitation of how many guys is just kind of annoying me, especially because I don't know if I said this last week, but I have the sinking feeling, Ryan, tinfoil hat. There's going to be a year in the Pro Football Hall of Fame where it's just going to be Tom Brady. And the logjam's just going to get more and more backed up at that point. Like, we're talking about a generation that literally made this the top sport in the country and the most valuable sport in the world. And like the problem is like Torrey Holt's numbers don't look great, especially when we're looking at, the the other wide receivers who now come out, but he's absolutely, like, you talk about him for that time being a Hall of Famer.
Wide receiver is a mess. There's so many that should be in there.
I know.
I do hate the first ballot stuff, because I do feel like the people that are voting on the Hall of Fame are voting with that in mind. Like, Eli should get in, but let's not get him in the first time. Like, no, if you think Eli Manning is a Hall of Famer, then you vote him a Hall of Famer. I'm not saying I do or don't think it, but it
just risks it because you have these I'm not saying there's limitations, but it feels like it's a self-imposed limitation, and each of your guys are going to fall off the plate more and more. So, like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. There needs to, I don't know. I think with Hall of Fame talk, the thing that's always the most frustrating is that it doesn't seem like the right people are in.
Mm-hmm.
Like Troy Aikman's in the Hall of Fame.
I kind of had this on a
I can't.
I kind of had this on a weird feeling. This was over me like last year. Buddy Parker from the Veterans Committee. Like, he doesn't make it in. The guy invents the 2-minute offense. Meanwhile, but like that's not the main crime, apparently. Everyone's screaming up and down, how can you not put in Robert Kraft? I'm like, he's an owner. What the fuck did Robert Kraft do? Did the one guy from the coach contributor list make it in this year? I forget his name.
I don't know what you're talking about. I despise Hall of Fame. I really do.
We're talking like the guy who was up this year, like, literally invented the NFL out of a car dealership. Like, so, like, I just want to know.
Yeah. Troy Aikman, 165 touchdown passes to 141 interceptions.
How many of these? How many of these? It's the only thing that matters for a quarterback.
Which is the only reason we're entertaining Eli Manning over Matt Schaub.
Yes.
Yeah. Stupid. I hate it. It's dumb. There needs to be better requirements. Like requirements like Torrey Holt. Dude, his 2000 season is insane. He caught 82 passes, led the league in receiving yards with 1,635, which by today's standards doesn't seem that great, right?
How many yards per catch is that?
19.9 yards per catch on 82 catches and 139 targets.
You should send that to Aaron Schatz.
This is what I'm talking about here. So Ralph Hay was his name. He was the owner of the Canton Bulldogs. And again, I don't really care about we're talking about a guy who co-founded the NFL in the 1920s, the guy who started the whole damn thing, and you can't put him in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Like that's the point where I'm just kind of like, all right, well, what are we doing in the Hall of Fame? Is it only for the very best players? Is it for the story of the NFL? Is it supposed to capture the breadth and width of the history of a league that genuinely has problems with its history? Like I think I was doing the receivers for Dan Patrick this week, and someone called in very angrily about how Dan had repeatedly talked about this being the first three-peat on the board for the Chiefs in NFL history. And he was like, you're forgetting about the 1920s Green Bay Packers and the Packers in the 60s that won 2 NFL championships and a Super Bowl. It's like, oh, that guy's an idiot. But also it is very much so our delineation of what happens before and after the Super Bowl and what history matters and doesn't matter.
Well,
and
I'm all in favor of diminishing the accomplishments of the Packers, though, Chris. I'm all for doing that.
Sure.
Especially,
Sure.
there was that one year in the 30s for one of their championships where they just they said we're not playing Portsmouth because we have a better regular season record than them, so why do we have to play them for the championship? We're just the champions. And I'm like, oh, okay,
sure, yeah, that's absolutely
Can you
true.
do that? Why did the Lions do that this year?
I know.
We're the number 1 seed. We're not going to play the 5 seed.
Speaking
the
of
6 seed. We're the 1
Speaking
seed.
of Packers, they made sure to make sure that the Super Bowl was very much so about them. I don't know if you saw that, Ryan.
Are we talking about Bukowski?
Yeah, we're talking about Bukowski.
Oh, that Jordan Love loss doesn't look so bad anymore, right? Dude, somewhere a Bill Barnwell think piece was getting drawn up. As soon as the Eagles were just throttling the Chiefs, it was the youngest group of skill position players 1 year later.
Wait, so I think I saw the Bukowski tweet, and he was just basically
I'll
relitigating the Week 1 loss to the Eagles.
Yeah,
and like, hey,
wondering if So
go ahead.
two people were really talking about Week 1. NBC, who was really talking about this is the first Super Bowl champion who played on a streaming exclusive game to start the year, very much so like Penn State. Yeah, that came out of NBC, Ryan.
Right, but they lost
the
the wild card 2 game.
Yeah, but I think it was a season opener streaming. The amount of qualifiers on it is insane.
Okay.
Anyway, the Bukowski tweet goes wondering if anyone feels a bit differently about Jordan Love struggling against this Eagles defense without his top 3 receivers.
Are they his top 3 receivers though? Because didn't they have 4 number 1s? So even if he was down his top 3, he still has his number 1, right? Is that how that works?
I have no clue.
I don't know.
You're asking me to pick the brain of a Packers fan.
I forgot that they played week in the playoffs. I thought this was in reference to literally the Week 1 Brazil game.
Oh, no. This was in reference to Jordan Love pooping his pants in the wild card round.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
But it still doesn't change anything.
Right.
Nothing.
Not a damn thing.
They have a quarterback problem in Green Bay, and they're starting the wrong one. That's what's going on.
RGA, thank you for the 100 bits, says Jeremy will get his keys back this time next year. Yeah, go back to San Francisco. I don't think they're in San Francisco anymore, but I mean
Santa Clara, but yeah, man.
They're in Texas, right?
I don't even know. I don't think I can track the last time it was. I may have deleted the app, the tile. Oh no, I do still have the tile app.
You say you don't have a screenshot of it?
Most recent location of the keys 255 days ago was Scottsboro in Texas. I think. Wait, no, Scottsboro, Alabama.
Impressive.
Oh, did you guys hear about that stat last night with Devonta Smith?
No.
About the Alabama receivers?
Well, just the first Alabama player to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
I always kind of are we not counting we're not counting Jalen Hurts as an Alabama player?
No, because his last year was in Oklahoma.
Right. Yeah, which is that's the weird part about it, right? Because there's definitely Hurts, because Hurts had scored in 2022.
Right.
He's in Alabama, but he played but he played at Alabama. I don't So it's just kind of a very weird technicality, right?
Well, maybe that, or there's nobody before Jalen Hurts from the University of Alabama that has scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
That's wild.
Through history, Alabama's mostly like put in linemen and defensive players. They're not. That's not never really been a university
Lions
who's
had made it. They got a couple.
I think Michigan has the longest streak right now of receptions in the Super Bowl without a touchdown. Michigan receivers.
That's weird.
A Penn State player has appeared in every Super Bowl. Very small parentheses, except 5 since 1963.
That was maybe the greatest tweet of all time.
Yeah.
And that it was also terrible. Score bug.
Oh,
Score bug.
Minimalism is a crime.
Can we celebrate the things that we did like about it?
Let me. In case
I
you
have
don't
nothing I
know
liked about it.
Chris has nothing he liked about it.
I have nothing I liked about it.
This is the score bug. It's the design in which the score shows up. And I'm sorry for I just clicked on the first one, so I don't know what everything around this is. Actually, let me just.
I think the thing. I'm sorry. To Thomas J. Hutchins asking. Joe Namath played it for Alabama. He didn't score. It's specific, not throwing a touchdown. We're talking about like either rushing and receiving touchdown. Yeah.
I'll be honest. There is not much about the score bug that I like at all either.
It looks like something we could have come up with for Twitch.
Okay, guys, but I want to say the nice things before we rip it to shreds. Okay.
Okay. I guess I liked when they pulled something off from the team name and like, oh look, it's Steve Spagnuolo's third year as their defensive coordinator. Like that. That kind of worked.
Okay.
What do you like about it?
So I'll let Ryan go first, and then I'm gonna say my piece.
I see people saying I don't know why, but the letters almost look blurry to me, and the font sucks. I kind of dug the font. Like it was
the
big.
font's just the Fox font. It's the Fox font. So like it that at least made sense to me.
Yeah, I was cool with it being like the abbreviation too, like just KC.
Sure.
And FI, PHI. The rest of it's awful.
Here's the thing. So my undergrad, my bachelor's is in interactive design. It's on user interfaces. It's on user experiences. It's stuff like that. I understand people really like the minimalist aesthetic of it, but you are both too big and yet just empty with information out there. I really hate centered bottom score bugs to start with, but also like the negative space is pissing me off.
Oh yeah, that was the number one with
a
bullet. I was like, why is there nothing sitting behind the numbers?
The negative space is pissing me off. The lack of any kind of, I'm not saying you really need to go hyper technical like the previous Fox score bug at all, but like it looks like a test graphic. There's certain at least production levels of an aesthetic for a TV broadcast you are supposed to present. And this just screams placeholder on top of it. I understand we're all about deconstructing now, about minimal, about not going overboard with making something edgy or electric. But for God's sakes, the entire brand of Fox Sports, especially in the NFL, is Cletus the football robot. And you've decided, actually, no, we're actually just a very flat, standard. It doesn't invoke anything, I think, is my problem. It's not trying to look like cybernetic or any kind of aesthetic like the old Fox stuff, nor is it keeping any kind of look like CBS might have, which invokes their brand. Sports Surf Pro reminds me of the 70s attempts at graphics. The 70s attempts at graphics, I don't even think it's that. What you'd get for in the 70s is there'd be no score, no bug, but then all of a sudden a massive graphic would be laid across the screen every now and then. Now, if you want to do something like that, that's cool. I even think that could come back, considering we're in this age where we really don't need a score bug up at all times, especially not for the score itself. For timers, sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
No, I need the score bug like all the
No,
time.
I mean
I
that's
prefer
fair too. I'm saying if you wanted to go that route, it's there. I could see the argument for it. I don't know if I'd agree with it,
Okay. Yeah.
but
The score bug to me, it looks like someone who has turned their phone font up to like 70 degrees.
Oh, yeah.
And
I see it now. I get it.
I'm not trying to insult those people, but that's what it looked. I mean, I have them side by side. If you guys aren't watching the stream,
Yeah,
and like
see
you
it.
can see, it takes up like 60% of the screen, whereas the old one was like 40.
the floating stats in the right hand corner is something that's really annoying me as well. It just does not feel complete, and I
It's
think
also-
most people watching would say this doesn't feel like it's complete.
Yeah.
Looking at
There's no
these-
contrast.
Right.
It's the same thing with
Yes.
the numbers for the score, right? Like there's no contrast like there is in the score bug from the championship game.
Yes. There's like the background, right? The transparent background, which they use for the time, the normal time. Like they have that there, but to me, the only advantage the new score bug has is more distinct timeouts. It is very clear how many timeouts each team has. I don't love the timeout dots on the old one.
Which I guess gets me to my point is like, is this so minimalistic and so large because casual football viewers?
Maybe.
It's like,
just-
those big blocks are timeouts underneath their names.
Why unveil this at the Super Bowl is my only question.
I feel like they do that every year, though. Like, I feel like the Super Bowl always has a distinct score bug, and I don't quite. I'm with you. Like, I don't get it. We've had 5 months to get used to something, and then you're just gonna pull the rug out from underneath us.
I don't see the aesthetic for it. The only thing that makes me feel like, oh yeah, this is Fox's score bug is the fact that I know that those letters feel like the Fox lettering, the Fox font. But everything else, like there's just nothing about it that makes it feel like this is part of it's lacking the branding, I guess. It lacks any feel of either football or sports or Fox Sports. It's plain. It's very plain.
The last thing that bothered the crap out of me last night is having the play clock way in, like, on the side compared to the game clock. When before, like, the play clock would show up right next to the game clock on the old score bug.
Mm-hmm.
This one is way off to the side. That drives me crazy.
Just more crusading against the play clock. And
I just don't make me search for things. They should be where they have been.
like Marty says, all I can hear from you guys is get off my lawn.
Nah, this isn't an old person take. If it was an old person take, it'd be like, oh, I could finally read the score. It was big. I didn't have to guess which logos they were. They told me the city name.
Oh, man. It didn't matter, though, because it was the most boring Super Bowl ever.
Right. We didn't need to see the score. We saw what was happening.
How'd you guys feel about Tom Brady?
I don't know. I didn't hear it. Like, especially during the Super Bowl, I hear almost no announcers. Like, we're either talking.
The only thing that,
or
I didn't
I'm
think he
just
was
zoned out.
I don't think he was terrible, Ryan. I did notice there was the sequence near the end of the game where it's just like he was trying to stand up for Patrick Mahomes a bit, where he's like, golly, like, this is just a bad game for him. But, if there's anyone who's going to bounce back, that can bounce back this year, it's Patrick Mahomes. He knows how to be resilient. And right as he's saying that, Patrick Mahomes throws another pick, ends up getting erased by offsides, but.
See, in that spot, I would expect Brady to be like, it is tough to bounce back from Super Bowls. I can't say that I was ever blown out in one, Kevin, but this is the second time it's happened to Patrick.
Yeah, some haterade in there.
That's a move that I would want Tom Brady to make because, I don't know, he has so much villain to him. I think he should just lean into it.
That's why it almost felt wholly inappropriate that he was the one narrating Patrick Mahomes' downfall, right? Like, this guy.
he couldn't be that guy, to Chris's point, right? He like was going out of his way to be like, oh, like he'll bounce back.
All I remember from Tom Brady last night was the weird random shot at Kevin Hart. He made a short joke about Kevin Hart.
He took a shot at Kevin Hart.
Yeah, I think they showed Kevin Hart on the screen.
Yeah, Kevin Hart,
and he goes,
in a
I wonder how the
Dolphins
camera
jersey.
found Kevin Hart.
I don't even think it was a short thing. I think he's just marveling at the idea of like, golly, how does all this TV stuff that I'm just brand new to? How do they know where to look for him?
I think it was a short joke.
Can CBS figure out a way to get Greg Olsen? Can they get out of Tony Romo's deal and get Greg Olsen in there? It's honestly a sham.
I think we've forgotten how much money they paid Tony Romo because holy boats, man.
Maybe I'm sensitive to short jokes, moldy cornbread.
See, Wild Brooks, I do not mind personal anecdotes from Tom Brady. I think that's I did not mind him as much. He felt a lot more put together versus his other broadcasts for this year, but it's rough, right? It's rough with Tom Brady, and I think what we got out of him is like the least distracted Tom Brady will be all year. the least I want to say restricted we'll get of Tom Brady all year. But it still wasn't like anything where I'm like, oh, that's fantastic. But again, part of that's because it's a blowout.
Yeah, I mean,
at least we have the advantage that we can deduct points from Tony Romo because he was sitting there ruining in overtime last year.
I know that's been like Tony Romo's like biggest point of, I guess, like consternation that people have with Romo is the
oh, yes, I don't know.
Who's is Dial? It's the doctor. Is that from Futurama? Or is that Simpsons?
I think Simpsons.
Oh, it's Simpsons, yeah.
It's the lab coat guy.
Yeah.
I was going to say, no, the doctor from Futurama is the good news, everyone.
Zoidberg?
No.
That was Professor...
Oh, yeah.
I can't forget his name.
Farnsworth.
Frank, yeah.
Farnsworth is Futurama.
Yeah.
I thought, is Frank...
No, Frank is Simpsons. Frank is Simpsons,
right?
Who's Dr. Queenbean or something? I thought that's who the Simpsons guy was.
I don't know.
Whatever.
I haven't watched
I thought we were old. I thought we were yelling at people. I thought we were all doing the Abe Simpson.
I was a King of the Hill guy.
All right, we should get back into it. Not Quimby.
Yeah. Maya Quimby.
That's different. All right, let's get back into the podcast.
Lord, what is happening over in there?
Are we just doing Simpsons? Can we do Simpsons voices in the second segment and throw everybody off?
No.
This is the one thing the Lions need to do to make the Super Bowl.
God, that's terrible.
Park the car.
You have to get back into it
in Harvard Yard.
Good heavens, my football team is ruined. But what if I trade all of my first round assets for Myles Garrett? Oh, delightfully devilish Seymour.
Oh, sorry, this was a mistake. None of this is going to make it to scraps.
The worst.
Everything's making to scraps.
I hope they cancel us again.
You guys sound like Barney. Come on, Jeremy, do your best Barney.
He just burps. Like I
it's
can't.
So hard.
No, talk. We would absolutely start beating each other to death over like best prime ministers.
What? If that is a Simpsons reference, it is way over my head.
Wait, really? You don't remember that one?
Oh,
okay.
No, Jeremy was more of a Family Guy.
Can we start the next segment?
Yeah, sure.
I don't know
Go
what's
ahead.
happening right now.
You're the boss.
All right. Oh, she loves you so much. Hell now. Oh, golly.
We are bad at this.
No.
I don't even know who that was.
I was trying to do
Boomhauer.
Boomhauer, but I lost it near the end terribly.
Oh no. That's my purse. I don't know you.
There we go.
Is that Luann?
No,
It's Bobby.
That's Bobby.
Oh.
Okay. All right. Has everybody left yet?
I'm not
They
sure.
were all CIA assets anyway. They were good to be rid of them.
What am I going to order from Taco Bell?
There you go. Now we're back in our rhythm.
All right. Okay. Sorry.
I had the worst gas after Taco Bell last week.
Segment 2.
Pride to Detroit PODcast. We're still coming to you after the Super Bowl, and I think Jeremy wanted to press the question of what are the big things the Lions need to do to be a Super Bowl winner. I don't know, Jeremy. I think part of that is just like not have everyone's knees explode all at once.
Sure.
That would be a good one. I think we were discussing this during the break, which we'll try to chronicle some of it in scraps this week. But like, I feel like, and Brian right now has Beware the Offseason up on his wall, and I feel like part of this is just going to have to come from that. The farther we get away from the season, the less we're going to have a collective memory of just how damn banged up the Lions were and what they could have been with everyone healthy. But I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's really I think the answer for me is just staying the course of the Lions to make them into a Super Bowl winner. I think you've got yourself into a good place, and you just need to not blow up with injuries and just be in the playoff. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear just be in the playoffs, healthy and humming on the right at the right level at the right time. They don't want to hear that. I understand that, but I don't know what else to say on looking at this Lions team and saying that, like, actually this needs to change in order to guarantee winning the Super Bowl. Because this was a team through most of this year until all the injuries really took their toll that people still thought was going to make the Super Bowl out of the NFC.
Yeah. I think people mistakenly look at 2024 as a step back because they didn't get to the NFC Championship game. They didn't get to the Super Bowl. Not everyone views it that way. I think a lot of people can see, 15-2, that was a hell of a season. That was a hell of a run. That number 1 seed in the NFC, they took a step forward, but not everyone sees it that way. And listen, progress isn't always linear anyways, but I think a lot of what you're saying is right. Like, the Lions roster is better than it's ever been. They're set up to make it even better this next year. They have a ton of draft capital. They have a ton of cap space. No one here is saying the Lions can't or shouldn't be aggressive this upcoming offseason, but aggressive can mean a whole lot of things. It doesn't have to mean trade multiple first-round picks for your favorite pass rusher. You can be aggressive in free agency. You can go out and get the best defensive lineman. You can be aggressive in the draft and trade up and get, in a defensive end heavy draft, get one of the top guys. You could go ahead and do that. And I think a lot of us might be on board for something like that. But if we're talking roster construction, what is the number one goal? What do they have to do this offseason? It is what we've been talking about a lot already during this podcast. It's the defensive line. It's figure out the defensive line. And part of that isn't just it needs to be a lot better. It's that you're at a crossroads with a lot of players on your defensive line. You have to decide whether DJ Reader is worth the second year in his expensive deal. You have to decide whether you want to bring back Levi Onwuzurike. You have to decide whether you want to give Marcus Davenport another shot. I imagine you probably don't.
Who is Broderick Martin? Question mark.
Right. You have to decide if Broderick Martin, if you're confident enough to give him a big role in 2025, or make sure that you're not giving him much of a role. Even I think there's even some, like, like Zadarius Smith is also a tough decision in my opinion, because he's going to cost you $11 million spread over the next 2 seasons for 1 year, the way it's currently set up. Are you okay with that?
Not really.
It's tough. It's a tough question because you do need someone opposite Aiden Hutchinson, right? You need someone who can set the edge, and that's not necessarily Zadarius Smith's best role, but you need depth at edge. You need another starting capable guy, and you have one currently on the roster, but you're going to overpay him if you keep him.
Yeah, I mean it's a defensive end opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, and when the concerns were about injuries, it's a guy who's 33 years old.
Yeah,
but I think to your larger point, Jeremy, like they just have to reinvest in the defensive line for both the immediate and the long term, right? Because like what is the long term plan beyond DJ Reader? DJ Reader helps in 2025, but DJ Reader is not on the roster in 2026. Right. So what's the path there?
Is it Broderick Martin? Mekhi Wingo is kind of like the guy that we forget a lot. Like he was coming into his own a little bit during that rookie season before his own season-ending injury. But what I don't want to get lost in the Eagles' run here is their interior defensive line, right? Their defensive tackles have been phenomenal. I think people have become averse to what the Lions' pass rush strategy was this year, which was crush the pocket. Like, you don't need your edges winning around the edge all the time. You can just crush the pocket around the quarterback. Guess what the Eagles did last night?
Crush the pocket.
That. They crushed the pocket. They made it so that Patrick Mahomes really had nowhere to go. And the key to that is interior pass rush. And the Lions have one big piece of that puzzle. They do not have a second.
I think also, like, and again, I don't want to make last night all just about what the Eagles defense did. I would like to talk about their offense, and I feel like that's, hey man, it's kind of the same situation. And I think like the Lions are at least in a good spot as far as like, we'll have to see what they think about Giovanni Manu. I know they've said there's plenty that they like about him so far. We haven't actually seen him in action, kind of unlike, say, Christian Mahogany. And the guards situation is something still kind of to figure out on whether you bring Zeitler back, whether you bring Glasgow back, whether Mahogany replaces one of them. If there is another guard you want to be drafting, what's going to happen long-term with Taylor Decker and Frank Ragnow? Those are points to address, but a lot of the rest of the offense is there, and it's steady. And you have, I think, the best tackle in the NFL in Penei Sewell. Like, you've got plenty already, I feel like, on that side to build on to replicate what the Eagles did. And I mean, because again, I feel like if a team comes at the Lions and shuts down their run game, which is really hard to do, you just have to hope that Jared Goff won't throw 5 picks next time. And like, look, I feel like just like there has been people on this Monday after the Super Bowl second guessing the career suddenly of Patrick Mahomes because he got smacked around in the Super Bowl. We also need to talk about there's people who have suddenly just started to second guess on Jared Goff. And I understand Jared Goff is, those 5 interception games hurt when they come at the wrong time, Ryan, but you just have to hope with the way he's played in 18, 20 some other games that comes to the front at the right time. I feel like the Lions got on a low at the wrong time when it came to their offense, especially in the divisional round.
Yeah, we talked about it on the previous podcast, but I think arguably the most important thing and one of my biggest reactionary takeaways is to Jeremy's point about the interior defensive line pressure that the Eagles are able to generate. Well, the Lions, their key to success right now is making sure that offense stays humming. And that's why they need to fortify the interior of that offensive line. Like, if you're going to have to go up against Philly, you better have one of the best offensive lines in football to combat that. Now, contrast that with the Chiefs, right? Their offensive line, pretty good. Some all-pro talent on that offensive line. But what have the Chiefs done that, finally came home to roost yesterday was, they have DeAndre Hopkins and Juju Smith-Schuster. And,
Hollywood Brown just off of a massive injury, right?
And Travis Kelce, who's 30 however years old. Like, you have all these aging players. You can't trade away Tyreek Hill and this thing can always just keep running and humming along, and you can totally thumb your nose to skill position players don't really matter because we have Patrick Mahomes.
And your top running back is Kareem Hunt. Like they had no run game to speak of last night.
Yeah. I mean, super unfortunate what happened with Isaiah Pacheco, but it's like, okay, so like you lost Isaiah Pacheco and you may do with Kareem Hunt, but Kareem Hunt is no longer a difference maker. And Isaiah Pacheco wasn't in a spot to be a difference maker anymore. And that Super Bowl, like something that they kept on coming back to is like, oh, the Chiefs aren't running the football. It's like, well, they got into a hole, but also they just could run the football on that Philadelphia Eagles front. So that's why I think my big reactionary takeaway is not, oh man, the Lions need to do whatever they can to get another top defensive lineman. And they need to do that by means of trading away future assets and the ability to keep this thing going. Cause that's my thing. Like, and I feel like we talked about it with the Myles Garrett is that you trade for Myles Garrett and it's not a proposition of trade for Myles Garrett and you're going to win the Super Bowl. I would almost rather, if you said, yes, you have like a great chance at making the Super Bowl if you make this trade with Myles Garrett, but that's it. Like it's a one and done run. Like you're going to end up like the Los Angeles Rams. As opposed to like having a crack at it for the next 5 years because you're doing this thing the way that you built it. Mm-hmm. I would rather have a crack at this thing for another 5 seasons than to take one all-in push and that's your window right there.
And very important to your point too, because I know I can already hear some people say, well, that's not working for the Steelers. The Steelers are not what we're talking about here. Like
who's the Steelers quarterback?
Yeah. The Steelers stagger their way to that record every year where it's like, okay, somehow they're making these playoffs and like double-digit wins is very cool for them. But what the Lions are doing each year is very different. Like what Ryan's talking about is very different from what the Steelers do. Like, but there is something to, and I say that because I feel like people easily point to the Steelers to try to dismiss this idea of just make the playoffs and you're good, but
trash.
It's terrible.
They don't draft well. They don't free.
Or they're skill position players. They drafted Najee Harris in the first round.
Right.
In what world are Jahmyr Gibbs and Najee Harris even the same species at running back?
What the Lions are closer to doing is the Ravens and the Bills. And yes, I understand those guys haven't won Super Bowls either, but they're pretty damn close. And
for how many years now?
Right. And eventually one of those teams is going to break through. The Bills came damn close this year. The Ravens came damn close the year before, and I understand damn close isn't enough for a franchise that doesn't have a single Super Bowl, and that drives people crazy, but there's a reason why
there's no guarantees in this league.
Yeah,
none.
There's no guarantees no matter how good your roster is. Once you get in the playoffs, it's just about getting hot at the right time, and the Lions didn't this year. The Ravens haven't the entire way. The Bills haven't quite got there yet. I don't know what to say. But I do want to go back, because since we're talking about specifically like what the Lions need to build, I want to go back to your point about the offensive line, because the Chiefs have a few really good guys on that offensive line, but they have a couple that are not good at all, which is a very big reminder that your offensive line is really only as good as your weakest link, which is why...
Which is what happened in the NFC divisional round versus the Washington Commanders.
Right. And so the Lions are going to have Decker. They're going to have Penei Sewell. They're going to have Frank Ragnow for at least the next couple of years. They can't allow those two other openings to become weaknesses.
Yeah, especially as we're talking about interior defensive pressure. And Frank Ragnow is really good at picking up a lot of that interior defensive pressure, but he needs the guard. The guards cannot be, collapsing on him. They just can't. And that's ultimately what, you've got a potential prospect with Mahogany. You have to decide if you liked what you saw out of Zeitler for a year. You have to decide on Graham Glasgow. Like, this is a team that let Jonah Jackson walk, and it worked out for them. But you're going to have to keep replenishing that talent, and that's, again, why you don't throw everything away like Ryan's talking about, to go after one big giant player, because you need those players to keep replenishing. Like, you are constantly in the NFL fighting off decay and attrition. Do your best to make sure it doesn't all catch up with you at once.
I still just want to know, like, I don't understand the perception of Brad Holmes not being aggressive when he's done a lot of aggressive things as general manager. Albeit, yeah, it was 2022, but like trading a pick to move all the way up to 12 to take a wide receiver who's coming off an ACL tear. That's pretty aggressive.
Had to be held back from going after Ja'Marr Chase.
Trading up for Terry Arnold.
Trading up, 3 times in the last draft? Trading to get Carlton Davis. Like, those are all aggressive moves. There's a way to be aggressive. There's a way to fill in your holes with very talented players that don't involve... I mean, I feel I'm so sick of talking about Myles Garrett because
it's the one name. It's the one name. It's like you've blinded yourself to any other possibility,
right?
Any other option. It has to be this one player,
right? That is what's driving me crazy. Is that this is the only way the Lions win the Super Bowl is if they go after this one guy. Like, no, that's first. We again underlying the point. We don't even know if he's available. We don't. Players say they want to get traded publicly all the time, and it doesn't end up happening. Second of all, there are so many other ways the Lions can fill the needs that they can that are aggressive, that are aggressive in nature. That, I mean, I would say Brad Holmes every single season he's made an aggressive move, whether it's in the draft or free agency.
I mean, Cam Sutton. You want to talk about a swing and a miss?
Yeah. Right. This idea that he is going to he's going to sit on his hands, or that we're advocating for him to sit on his hands, is ludicrous.
We're just asking you to be smart aggressive, because like as much as there seems to be the surefire winner every free agency or trade period, like the NFL is littered with the corpses of the Dolphins and Washington who go for the Alfred Haynesworths of the world. Like just overcommit to one guy, one name, and just don't consider alternatives. That's all we're asking for. Consider the alternatives.
The other like sneaky thing about what snuck up on the Chiefs last night was like they haven't had really good drafts over the past couple of years. Like not a whole lot of difference makers in the past 2 seasons in their drafts. Like I know Rashee Rice got hurt, but like there are no names that stand out to you. I mean, they lost guys that, shockingly, they drafted and developed themselves, like Tyreek Hill. You know what I mean? Chris Jones was a second-round draft pick. Obviously Mahomes, but like Kareem Hunt before everything happened with him. Like they have drafted really well. Nick Allegretti is a guy who eventually went to Washington, and he's a starter on their offensive line. They drafted him in the 7th round back in 2019. L'Jarius Sneed, a guy who just signed a mega contract to be a cornerback in Tennessee, to which the Chiefs had to wipe their hands of and say, no, like we can't give you a massive amount of money to be a cornerback. And who'd they replace him with? Well, they drafted well, and they got a guy like Trent McDuffie. Like, their team was so good for so long because they did it through the draft. Nick Bolton is a draft pick. Creed Humphrey is a draft pick. Who are their starting receivers? Oh, DeAndre Hopkins. Did he get drafted by the Chiefs? Juju Smith-Schuster, he get drafted by the Chiefs?
That D-Hop drop was rough.
I mean, that changes the entire game. But yeah. It's just, I don't know. It kind of boggles my mind to think that there are some people out there that think that how the Lions have become successful, now they need to change that plan because they're so close in a sport that Chris always continues to highlight boils down to single elimination games.
And sometimes single drives, like 2 or 3, like as we were talking about, 2 or 3 plays that changes the course of the game. It drives you insane. I know it does.
It drives me nuts because that's what that you just talked about, the Patriots lull that they experienced. You know, like it's going to happen to the Chiefs. They have to rebuild this thing. Like there are contenders. Mm-hmm. Like the Ravens are still going to be there. You know why? Because they continue to draft and develop well. And they didn't make a splashy move.
And
they got Derrick Henry. It's the same thing as the Eagles. Like it doesn't have to be some big massive move. Who's done that recently, Jeremy?
I don't know. I mean, there's not a lot. Like some people will point to like the AJ Brown trade as like their all-in move. Like they traded a first and a third, and I'm not here. That was 3 years ago. Whatever. But
they still drafted Devonta Smith.
There's this perception
and Jahan Dotson.
There's this perception that Lions fans like us are prioritizing just being relevant. Like, we just want the team to be relevant for the next 10 years. That's what we want. We don't care about a Super Bowl. We just want them to... No, that's not the idea here. The idea here is that you cross that threshold into Super Bowl contender and you stay in that for as long as possible because that maximizes your chances at a Super Bowl. Because
you want to take as many bites at the apple as possible.
Right. And
it sucks.
If you go all in 1 or 2 years, and I understand all in is in quotations because you can go all in and then rebound 3 years later and you're right back to where you were. I understand that. I'm not saying that the Lions' future is absolutely screwed if they make an all in move. That's not, I don't think that's necessarily reality either. But when you do that, you better win a Super Bowl, and there's a humongous risk in doing that. A humongous risk. I mean, you shorten that amount of bites at the apple. There's no question about that. You're shortening that window, and that's where we think the risk might not be worth it, because yes, you increase your chances maybe in those 1 or 2 years, but you still need things to fall your way. You still need to not have a disastrous season when it comes to injury. You still need to have a little bit luck in terms of maybe the teams that you play, the matchups that you have in your playoff run. You still have to have the luck in not having one bad day from your quarterback that screws everything up.
You better not have a bad matchup in a playoff round. You better not have, all these things. All these things happen. And on top of that, you risk so much of the stability, and ask yourself to go back to the old way of the Lions history, which is like, hey, this didn't work out. Now we have no assets. The losses start to mount up after that. Well, what should we do? We should probably fire the coach. We should probably fire the GM. Okay. Who are you going to hire? We'll hire someone. Okay. And then you start firing coaches. Then you start firing GMs. And you keep doing that. You get addicted to that. And then before you know it, it's just back in the fucking sewer. Just back in the fucking sewer. Like, that's the risk. That's the high wire risk act. Is it worth it for a Super Bowl? Maybe. But as Jeremy just laid out, it doesn't guarantee anything. This sport is random. You don't want to hear it. It's random. The best way you can do it is just give yourself the heaviest cards you can. And I just think that way, you look at the teams we're talking about year in and year out in the NFL. They've chosen steady and calm. They've chosen steady and calm nearly every time. I don't know. There's plenty of reasons to second guess some of Brad Holmes' decisions, but I guess what I'm saying is, like, if you were already pegging him about not going after Myles Garrett, or not making the biggest splash in the world, or trading away 3 firsts, like, I just don't want to hear it. I just don't, because it is so wild, crazy, and just like, I don't give a shit how many years you've been waiting for a Super Bowl. I really don't. Your emotion does not dictate good business for a football team to stay relevant. Your emotional investment doesn't dictate jack. I'm sorry. I hate to be the evil guy screaming at fans here, but I'm so tired of hearing from fans, I've been waiting X years for a Super Bowl. We've all been waiting X years for a Super Bowl.
We all want that.
That doesn't scream that you should be impatient.
Right. This idea that the Lions should operate different from some of these other teams, or because they don't have that Super Bowl yet. This idea, like, the Eagles, the Ravens, they've won their Super Bowl, so they can choose sustained success. So, but the Lions haven't had one, so they need to go out and get theirs. Like that is not how you operate a football team. You want to operate your football team like these teams that have won a Super Bowl, because that's how they did it. They didn't go, oh my God, we don't have a Super Bowl yet. We got to throw everything at this year. Like, no, that's faulty thinking.
And none of them said after the Super Bowl, all right, cool, we're good. We don't have to do that ever again. Yeah, let's just roll over and let everybody see our bellies. If I have to see the frickin' mystery box Family Guy meme explained to me as the reason why the Lions should trade for Myles Garrett instead of
could even be a Myles Garrett, Ryan.
Is so reductive and so stupid and dumb, and I'm just gonna have to deal with it. Just gonna have to live with it and have it be a thing while everybody keeps on peddling this Myles Garrett talk. But before that, it was Max Crosby.
But Yeah, it was Max Crosby before that.
It was Max Crosby before
Yeah.
that, and now it's
Right.
Myles Garrett. And who's it going to be after? Eventually, when the Browns come out and say that we're not trading Myles Garrett, it's going to immediately turn to Khalil Mack. It's going to be Khalil Mack in free agency. I'm telling you
That's
right now.
fine. Honestly, if you want a 38-year-old Khalil Mack for $8 million, fine.
Hey, that's not fair to Khalil Mack. He's not that old.
How old is he? He's not that far off.
He will turn 34 later this month.
Okay,
He's
that's
still
actually younger than
incredibly.
I thought.
He's still incredibly good.
You know what? I was thinking.
Like, I would
thinking
not
of,
completely hate it.
the Atlanta guy.
Oh, Calais Campbell? I'll take him
Yes.
too.
Yeah, Calais Campbell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Calais Campbell and Khalil Mack are still very good. Like
Yeah,
I would
let's go
still
get 'em.
like. Yeah, sure.
But
But
can we move
Yeah.
on from like the big splash moves
Yeah.
and talk about some of the other criticisms that I've seen Brad Holmes
Sure,
take today?
sure.
Because I think they're
I
think they're a little bit more fair. And I can run through them if you want. If you want to run through them,
Sure. No, I just want to set it up because as I've been looking at, you've written all these things down, and a lot of these tend to be like, hey, the Eagles kind of had around near the same draft pick as the Lions, and the Eagles end up with this insanely great player, whereas the Lions, I don't know, some of these names you're writing down here, Jeremy, list them off because I don't think I have too many complaints, really.
right?
Well, did Brad Holmes wake up a loser, Jeremy?
Not-
After
not-
Super Bowl
not playing this
Sunday?
game.
Okay, all right.
the
sorry.
biggest. No,
Biggest.
biggest.
it is kind of fascinating how their drafts have mirrored each other in some ways, not just in terms of picking close together, but sometimes in some cases picking the exact same position. So like the most recent example being this past draft where the Eagles go out and get Quinyon Mitchell 22nd overall and Cooper DeJean 40th overall, while the Lions get Terrion Arnold 24th overall and it's Rakestraw 61st. So, you know, both of those Lions pick happened after the Eagles pick, but, you know, you could certainly make the argument maybe the Lions made a mistake. They didn't get the right cornerbacks. You see Cooper DeJean obviously have the big play in the Super Bowl. He was 40th. The Lions could have had him instead of Terrion Arnold if you want to play that game. Do you guys think, let's start there, the most recent example. Do you think that's a fair criticism that, the Eagles transformed their entire secondary in one NFL draft? The Lions had a similar strategy and did not get that.
I mean, it's tough because I feel like Quinyon Mitchell was definitely the right move, but I don't think the Lions were getting in front of the Eagles in that situation for Quinyon Mitchell. So really, this is coming down to is Cooper DeJean worth more than Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw? Which, like, I don't know. Like, I understand both those guys are great early as a CB. I still want to see another year out of Terrion Arnold before I really start to henpeck this a little bit too much. How do you feel, Brian? Because this is tough. CB is a tough position.
Cornerback is a tough position, but I've already stated that they're entering this offseason in a much different standpoint than they were a year ago. They don't have to completely rebuild this thing from the ground up. So I do think Carlton Davis he's the most interesting subplot to the Lions.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't be grading drafts after one season, right? So saying that the Eagles knocked that one out of the park and the Lions blew it is premature, no doubt. But the Eagles deserve credit too, right? Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean were fantastic this year.
Yeah.
And
I remember
listen,
all
the
our
Lions,
talk. We were talking about Quinyon Mitchell in like the top 15, and the fact that they got him on down at 22 is pretty impressive.
Right. I mean, the fact that all those corners were falling is the only reason the Lions got one of their perceived top ones. Cooper DeJean's a tough one because the Lions didn't need a guy like him. They had Brian Branch, they had Ifeatu Melifonwu. He's kind of more in that same vein of a corner. You know, he's playing outside too, so I don't want to take that away from Cooper, but
and part of his appeal was punt returner too, another spot the Lions had locked up with Khalif Raymond.
Sure.
Yeah. And listen, like Ennis Rakestraw is the mystery box right now. We don't know anything about Ennis Rakestraw. Maybe he can be the nickel. So I think
He could have been the Lions' first round pick.
He could have. There were people that wanted that, right? But anyways, I think with that one, it's a little bit of TBD, but also like credit to the Eagles, like they kicked ass on that one.
Yeah. Incomplete grade.
You want to go back a year? Linebacker was a big topic of discussion in the 2023 draft or 2023 draft, and who was the top cornerback or linebacker? The Lions go get Jack Campbell. The Eagles get Nolan Smith later in the draft. Now, again, two very different players with very different roles, but Nolan Smith has been a big part of their pass rush. It's been part of their really good linebacker core. Jack Campbell, listen, he's taken over the Mike position. That's important in terms of game-changing plays. I don't think we've seen enough of that quite yet, but I don't know. Do you rate this as a mistake on, I almost said Bob Quinn, yikes, Brad Holmes' part?
No, by no means. I don't think Nolan Smith is really as good as advertised. Like, his whole thing coming into the draft, and I remember the discourse we had around Nolan Smith was, how much do the Lions value Sam linebacker?
Right.
He's a pass rush specialist. He's a pass rush specialist, and he had 31 pressures in 16 games. I mean,
big in the playoffs, though. He was huge in the playoffs.
That's great.
19 in 4 games, which is insane, but also like very not who he was the rest of the season.
And also, maybe you're getting freed up because there are some other guys on that line that are getting other people's attention, aka the James Houston effect.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that what we're going with James Houston now? He benefited from people around him?
I mean, let's just call a spade a spade.
I don't know. I don't know if they really had people
Hold
around
on.
back then.
But the other thing though is that sometimes you catch lightning in a bottle. I want to see some more from Nolan Smith because there were 16 games of him only getting 31 pressures, and I don't think he's a huge factor in. I mean,
by the way,
he's all right in run defense, but
if you want to play the better supporting cast around them, I think those rookie cornerbacks in Philadelphia definitely benefited from some pretty damn good pass rush.
there you go. I
really want to.
One of the like ultimate bummers of last season was when Terrion Arnold started to click towards the end of the season. That's when the pass rush went down. And so we never got like good early season Lions pass rush with good solid play from Terrion Arnold. I'm curious what those two look like together.
Yeah. That's what everybody talked about with Terrion Arnold, right? Is the growth and development, but also playing more man coverage than any other cornerback, any other rookie cornerback in the league, right? And what do the Eagles primarily run? A lot of zone.
Yeah. Sorry for cutting you off, Chris.
No, that I didn't have anything. I mostly want to just get to the next one because this is the one that kind of rankles me a bit on like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. Jahmyr Gibbs, that draft. Remember they traded down. Jaylen Carter was still on the board when they opted to trade out of that pick. Jaylen Carter was a huge topic of discussion for all of us that offseason. A lot of people thought he was worth the risk. He's been pretty damn good with the Eagles. The Lions do trade down. They get extra draft capital and get a top 3 running back in the league. But this is where like you start to inch back to the positional value debate and is a top 3
not
running
gonna
back
hear it. Nope,
worth
not
a
gonna
pass
hear
rushing
it.
defensive tackle?
This Lions team is nothing without a running back like Jahmyr Gibbs. Not a goddamn thing without that. Not a damn thing without that. And that's kind of where I start to just really fray at it that we're doing defense uberalis now. Like that's kind of where it's like I'm starting to like lose my mind a bit. We're talking about Jahmyr Gibbs, a guy who like just by how he was running at the end of the season, I had people nationally saying that like he could probably be an RB1A next year. Like, and we're throwing that all away, and like that's and you I mean you didn't even list all the draft capital they had gotten by trading back on that. I thought you know Mr. Trade Back himself, you should enjoy that, Jeremy. That's getting the capital, that's making all the other moves, and everything else. And like, look, I'm sorry, like this is part of the thing about the draft that also doing the Monday morning quarterback kind of enrages me because the talent was there with Jaylen Carter, but I mean. The car accidents, the driving at Georgia. I'm sorry. That was a big red flag. And if we're gonna throw heat on the Lions for not taking someone like Jaylen Carter, you have to throw it on a lot of other teams as well.
Oh, what was the Mortensen report? Like as Jaylen Carter was falling, that like it was like 6 or 7 teams had taken him off of their first round or off their board completely.
Wasn't there something weird at the combine too with him, or am I thinking of someone different? I don't know. Either way, there were red flags there, right? Like,
yeah,
you can definitely look back on it and say it was a mistake. I was a guy that was like Jaylen Carter is exactly what the Lions need at the time, but I I don't know enough about the specifics, right? I don't know about what happened that night. I don't know about what his general personality is, his work ethic, all that sort of stuff. I don't know. In retrospect, you can say, yeah, maybe they got the personality scouting wrong on Jaylen Carter, but that's a really hard thing to play Monday morning quarterback with, because I'm sure they did their due diligence, right? Like, they brought him in for visits. They studied him, right?
I guess what I'm saying is I'm refusing to put this as a lose situation because it's very dismissive. It's very dismissive of the assets and of Jahmyr Gibbs itself,
right?
And what they got on the other side of it. And I understand you're missing out on someone who's a great, interior defensive tackle and everything, and that's what the Lions really need to improve it. But I think if they had gone Jaylen Carter and we watched the Eagles do the same thing in the Super Bowl, we'd be sitting here being like, this offense could really, did we make a mistake on the Lions not getting a good running back to really linchpin this offense together?
March 15th, 2023, Eric Edholm of NFL.com. Jaylen Carter struggles during Georgia Pro Day workout because he weighed 9 pounds heavier than his weight at the NFL Scouting Combine, which was 2 weeks prior. And he didn't participate in any athletic testing. And remember, he left the combine and then came back because that was during the arrest. Yeah, there was so much going on with Jaylen Carter.
It's a lot.
But there are so many people just pointing at generational talent, but red flag. It wasn't as clear and cut dry as the Lions make that pick and it's a slam dunk.
Right.
Wasn't that the capital from trading back for Gibbs also what helped them land Sam Laporta?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, I understand the appeal of Jaylen Carter, but I want to take the full breadth. If the appeal of it is the trade back, we need to take the full breadth of what they got in trading back and waving away Jaylen Carter. And I refuse to put that as an L on Brad Holmes in that regard when you've got phenomenal foundational pieces of your offense.
It's very nitpicky, right? It's like you didn't get the absolute optimal value out of this pick, and maybe you even did, but if they had traded down and gotten someone garbage at 12, or
absolutely, yeah, then we can start yelling about this.
Then it's like the Eric Ebron versus whatever, right? Like
Aaron Donald
debate. That's not what this is. It isn't that big of a blunder, and I'm not saying it might not be a blunder at all, but if it's a blunder, if we're going to label it a blunder, let's at least put it into its proper perspective. It is a minor blunder.
Yes.
Now, maybe this other one, which YouTube has already gotten ahead of us on and losing their minds over it, the JMO pick. You're trading up. You're going all the way up to 12. Jordan Davis, meanwhile, goes literally 13th right after Jameson Williams goes. Any second guessing there? Any belief that the Lions or Brad Holmes made a mistake with that one?
I just don't want to keep doing this exercise. Going back this far, finding something desperate to get mad about. I'm sorry.
That's not that far. It's 2022.
Wait, only 2022?
Yeah. But
I feel like, but still, I feel like I'm going insane a little bit here. Because this is a team that had all this good energy about it, that it felt like everything was being built up, and it feels like ever since the divisional round, it's just been, this is terrible. This is terrible right here. 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 What are we doing? What are we? I want to talk about the Lions could do.
A lot of it goes back to Lions fans are just not used to this. They're not used to being a really, really good team, but not getting everything they want.
Other teams get to make good decisions too. I'm sorry. You don't get to hog the spotlight.
Well, in 2021 they draft Onwuzurike, they draft Aleem McNeil. They invested in the defensive line, and then in the first pick in 2022 they take Hutchinson. So
there's context there too. Yeah.
But trading up to 12 to get JMO was getting JMO at an extremely discounted rate. Go to the 2022 draft class. He's the best wide receiver in that draft class.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think any of us could have foreseen what was going to happen with him with the suspensions.
All I'm saying, the other ones were Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, and Drake London. I'll take JMO over any of those guys.
Okay.
I mean, he has the ability to be a 17
I might have
yards
taken
per
Drake.
catch receiver prior to what anybody else will tell you. But I guess my point though is like moving all the way up to 12, you get JMO.
Sorry.
Jesus.
Number
See,
one
I was
receiver,
just
Christian
mumbling. I was just mumbling and saying like I would have liked to have Drake, but that's me being a USC honk.
I think JMO might be he might be better at blocking than Christian Watson, and that was his superpower coming into the draft from North Dakota State. The last thing I want to say though is that like moving up to 12, you get the chance to take a shot on a skill position player while your team is still rebuilding in 2022. Like you're just trying to get the best players in the door versus you take Aiden Hutchinson at 2 and you move up, and if you were to take Jordan Davis at 12, I don't know, like have you stockpiled any skill players at that point? Because if we're doing the same thing with Gibbs at this point, the only player that they've invested in skill position wise in the draft at this point would have been Amon-Ra St. Brown in the 4th round in 2021.
Right.
Yep.
Well,
Like,
no. If you remember the conversation about the Lions draft that year, it was like they may have gotten the best defensive player and the best offensive player in football in that draft class because there weren't any quarterbacks in that draft class. And while it obviously hasn't happened yet.
Easy now. Hold on.
What are you saying?
There was a quarterback in that draft class.
Oh, yeah? Which one?
Who ended up being the best, even though there are a lot of people who talked about Desmond Ridder.
I mean,
I think it's time to end this
you're talking about Brock Purdy.
Yeah, this is where we need. Yeah.
No, but like it hasn't worked out that that's the best offensive player and best defensive player in the draft yet. But like Aiden Hutchinson certainly is making that case, and it's not easy to find an offensive player. I'm looking, and they're all offensive linemen, like Tyler Smith, Tyler Lindenbaum. I'm trying to find anyone else who's made Trey McBride.
The JMO and Gibbs thing is like this is where I'm just kind of getting a little like this is where I think the exercise phrase for me, because now we're starting to talk about like foundational pieces of why the Lions won 15 games this year. Those were mistakes to chase after defensive players instead.
Right.
Like that like this is the Monday morning quarterbacking that always goes crazy because you always have the right answer. You always have the right answer. And I know the people on YouTube are going insane, but I'm asking them to listen to what we're saying and actually say, yeah, you might have a point, rather than just dismissing us out of hand because you obviously are endowed with the correct information. Sure. Okay. Sure. We'll see.
Yeah.
Now
But
that
we've
we
gone
have
way-
the answer
we've gone
sheet,
way
Brad
long on
Holmes got a couple wrong.
I actually think the Lions scoring 564 points this season was a bad thing.
We're not saying he's perfect. We're not saying Brad Holmes is perfect. There's been plenty we have critiqued him on some of these picks, and the Broderick Martin one, we'll see about that, I guess, because geez. And there's definitely some MOs that I am not a fan of when it comes to the open box specials. But I don't know. I feel like nitpicking the top of these drafts because certain players showed up in the Super Bowl is just like, I don't want to do this. And I think we've been going for 40 minutes, so I think
Jaylen Carter had the worst PFF grade of any player in Super Bowl Sunday.
What do we got coming up this week, Jeremy?
Midweek mailbag, Wednesday morning we're going to record, so if you want to join us live, it'll probably be around 9:30, 10 a.m. I know that's weird for some people because they like to listen to us in prime time. But we'll record that Wednesday. It'll be up on the podcast feed probably Thursday.
Okay.
And that's kind of it in terms of audio stuff. I'm preparing for my trip down to the NFL Combine at the end of the week and the end of the month, which is going to be interesting because I've never been. Hopefully have some audio stuff for you then as well. But
And a shrimp cocktail.
And a shrimp cocktail.
St. Elmo's.
Yes, sir.
Well, we will also have scraps this week.
There you go.
That'll be kicked up on there. I know I missed it this week. I kind of woke up on Friday, realized I hadn't done one, and then got slammed with like 11 hours of work, so I couldn't get to it. But we will have scraps every week from here on out, as much as we can possibly do it. I think, yeah, that's really about it.
Yeah, I think
Ryan, any housekeeping, Ryan?
Yeah, in the 2005 draft, the Lions took Mike Williams one pick ahead of DeMarcus Ware. So I think that's
time to get out of here. All right.
Hey, I got one more quick announcement. Over on Pride of Detroit Direct, we're going to at some point very soon start a First Bite series detailing the Lions' new coaching staff, talking to people who have covered those people. So like we're going to get a Stanford writer to talk about David Shaw and get to know all the new Lions staff as we get to know them.
And for those of you live on Twitch and YouTube, stick around for a quick scrap that we're going to do at the end, because I haven't asked Ryan and Jeremy about one very cool story from this week. But for the podcast, that's going to be it. Thank you guys for everything. For myself, for Jahmyr Gibbs, for Ryan Matthews, we will see you Starside. Okay, that's the podcast done, but
You can keep the recorder on, huh?
yeah, because I just realized during the break I forgot to ask you what you think about Aaron Glenn laying down the law in New York.
Hell yeah, dude.
He has chosen. There's only room for one AA Ron in this town.
But I talked to a lot of Jets fans during this entire process because for some reason my name got thrown in their rings, and I did like two 2-hour Twitter Spaces with separate groups of people. And
Pro bono.
Pro bono. And I got asked a lot about Aaron Rodgers. I'm like, listen, this guy is going to be about setting up a culture of selflessness, a culture of working together, a culture of harmony. I'd be very surprised if Aaron Rodgers is someone he views as fit to start that culture.
Aaron Rodgers, you are a Tennessee Titan.
Oh, they had
The
Malik
Colts.
Willis, Ryan, and they decide to go the Aaron Rodgers route instead, according to you.
Mike Vrabel.
That one came up at a very interesting time during the Super Bowl as well. I think that was Sunday, right? When that report broke?
Yeah, it was like early, like around like
I
noon, 1
think-
o'clock.
I think Schultz had a report out Saturday night Pacific time. But it took until who was the other person who weighed in?
It was Schefter.
I thought it was someone before Schefter. Was it Rossini? Someone else weighed in, and like at that point, that plus Schultz was like, all right, this feels real. This feels full steam ahead. And I think some of it might have come from Rodgers' camp himself.
Well, they flew him in. Like I read a report
That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, they flew Aaron Rodgers in to tell him in person, "Hey, we're moving on from you." That's already a check mark, and like, hey, they're doing this the right way, right? They're
Respectability,
treating this guy
right?
with
Yeah.
respect.
Although Ryan, Dark Knight, frankly, a phone call would have sufficed. Dark Knight, no.
Yeah, no, that would have worked.
No.
I get it. That was a good one.
By the way, I saw The Batman yesterday.
The Batman.
The Batman.
What'd you think?
The 3-hour movie. It was fine. I like the
There's
Batman about a million times better.
Yeah, there's no way you watched all of it though in one sitting.
I did because I gave blood. And so I was sitting there for 2.5 hours like, this seems like the time. I'm never going to watch The Batman, if not now, when I'm tied to tubes for 2.5 hours.
Chris, the further I get away from Christopher Nolan's trilogy, the more it sucks.
Yes. Yes, thank you for coming around to my side. Yes. I can't even watch The Dark Knight anymore, man. I get to that point where
You just
like
referenced it, though.
I know, but it's the midway point is when it starts to really turn. It's when Eckhart is like turning himself in, and just all of a sudden I just hear out of the back, "No more dead cops." I'm like, we're getting really goofy right now.
Well, okay, so highlights from the Batman, Jeremy.
Is it Robert? No, it's not Robert. What's the Robert Pattinson?
Pattinson.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Pattinson, yeah. Robert Pattinson, yeah.
His Batman was way different than any I'd seen because he actually seemed like an angsty child.
Like a damaged
Yes.
person, a damaged child who had
But-
actually seen his parents die. Yes.
Yes.
Like murdered in front of him, yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad they didn't go over that too much. I mean, it did become a major plot
Like
point,
every
but-
other movie has.
And I will say, even though I'm not much of an action guy, the car chase was pretty dope.
I love that it's such early Batman that it's basically just a Dodge. It's just an old Charger with some extra shit added to it.
Uh, but I think bringing up the chase is a good point because what that movie does so well is like atmosphere, like the city being a character.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, which is very important to any Batman.
It's just, I don't know, it's critical. Dano did a pretty good job, don't you think?
Yeah. It felt like he was barely in the movie, but
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I know where it's soured for Jeremy, and I think I think I have a good idea of where like Jeremy's kind of like waffling a bit. It's the last 15 minutes, isn't it?
A little bit.
It's so
It's
like as much as I like that
for no reason.
Yeah, like I think someone described it as basically the film overstays its welcome for the last 20 minutes to beg you not to kill your politicians when the sea waters rise. Like it didn't need to be in the movie at all.
Yeah. I will say it was weird watching the Penguin first, so reverse chronological order there.
Yeah.
So I knew, spoiler, the city was going to flood because the Penguin is all about the aftermath of that.
Spoiler alert on a 3-year-old movie.
Right. Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
Maybe there are other people out there like, hey, I'm going to watch this movie, but I don't have 3 hours of my time. Like I was.
Yeah. Are you excited about what is going to come after though,
No.
based on your viewing of the Penguin?
Nope.
No?
Nope.
No interest, huh?
No, because it like both the Penguin and the Batman had the same cringy ending, which is like, oh, by the way, remember, this is a superhero universe. Here comes more superheroes. And I'm like, no, that's not what I want. This was more grounded in reality. And so, like, the Penguin teased what? It teased Catwoman. It teased Batman, who wasn't in the show at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming with so much Arkham talk, at some point Harley Quinn is going to show up, and I'm just like, I don't.
Well, I know the movie at the very end like did a little bit of a Joker drop, but like that like I don't know, like I felt that was very tame compared to just
but
what
to me,
we get out of every fucking Marvel movie in existence.
Well, it's the exact same thing that Marvel does, which is like, hey, by the way, this wasn't just a movie, this was a setup for the next one. And I'm just like, can you just treat this like a movie and not a universe and not try to pull, like, you're trying to pull money out of me while I'm still in watching this movie that I just paid for. Don't do that.
I think that's fair, but I also think that that comes down from Warner. But from what I understand about Matt Reeves, he has no interest in doing like a big DC, like using this to save a big D. Robert Pattinson isn't suddenly going to appear in the next Aquaman movie.
No, so that's the other thing that I think would help assuage your concerns, Jeremy, because one,
they've kept this separate.
Yeah, because like James Gunn he's the guy who's like spearheading all the new DC movies. He's the one who did the new Superman movie that's coming out. He basically has said as much, like their universes are not connected. Like the Batman stuff is its own like standalone kind of stuff. But then also like Matt Reeves, like there was another delay for the Batman movie because he's like, I don't have the script right yet. And it's like, okay, like I feel like it would be very easy for Warner to be like, well, you better get the script right because we need a Batman movie to come out. And it's like I feel like he kind of has the autonomy to like not be rushed for it to be shoehorned into some kind of universe. Yeah. Which like still like it gives me like hope that it can like be different because I think it's definitely different than most of the other Batman movies I've ever seen. I mean, aside from
most
Tim
of the
Burton,
Batmans have been
like,
self-contained, yeah. And I think it's easy to self-contain Batman because it's not really a superhero. Like there's always some weird shit that happens in there, but like they're not. He famously has no powers except for being rich. Like
that seems to be the most useful superpower in today's day and age. So
yeah, I know.
Oh boy, we're teetering on the edge again.
Oh boy. Well, Karen wants to talk about Severance though.
I haven't watched season 2. I don't have Apple TV Plus at the moment.
You're missing out.
Well, listen, I'm going to like hit Apple TV Plus hard when I get it. I'm gonna.
Oh, I can't wait for you to watch Shrinking and
I need to
how
watch season
not
2
good
of
it is.
Shrinking. I need to watch
Speaking of
Silo. People talk about Silo a bunch. I don't even know what that is. But
Speaking of which, this is my last day of having Netflix.
oh, I'm gonna cancel my Netflix too, and I'm excited about it. Is that weird?
I'm excited. I'm just wondering, besides the some anime movie, if there's anything I need to see in the last 24 hours that I will not see anyway.
It's a good
On
question.
Netflix? There's that
Yeah.
Lindsay Lohan Christmas movie that came out.
YouTube
No,
is
thank
still
you.
popping off.
But that's
Um,
how bad, like, Netflix is just like,
I'm-
you keep Netflix because you're like, well, what else am I going to turn on when I'm about to fall asleep?
That is exactly what I use Netflix for, and I like Archer and Arrested
think for
Development.
me, this is the funny thing, because I think for me, the reason I never fall into the next Netflix hole, for me, that the answer to that, Ryan, is I have a YouTube playlist.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
do you have ads with YouTube?
So because I am smart and I put uBlock Origin on literally every browser I own, no.
Okay, so that's why Netflix has earned its way to the chopping block, is because once they added advertisements, now,
Yep.
because it used to be like, well, I'm not going to put on Hulu when I'm falling asleep because I don't want to hear any ads while I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
I'm going to
I-
put on Netflix, but now Netflix has ads. And like I was saying on here the other day, like Netflix has like certain movies that are locked that
Yeah.
you need to like pay more for.
Oh, really?
Like you need to pay a higher tier subscription in order to access some of their movies.
If I'm going to pay for anything at this point, it would be YouTube Premium so I can get ad-free on my TV. But
we won't spoil Severance,
but-
but I will say that
but
it's
my-
like one of the
my-
best shows.
my laptop is OLED. So and has a pretty good soundbar on it. So I can just set it up on the side in my bedroom to fall asleep. And that shit's got uBlock Origin on it. So that means YouTube can't fucking throw ads at me.
Yeah, Netflix is getting canceled, and then I'm just whenever the next season of I Think You Should Leave comes out, I'll subscribe for a month. I'll do what I'm doing with Apple, which is like
They're
no
going to try to
thanks
get you
until
on
you get
on
me
a
up.
on a sport at some point again. And at that point,
Nope.
cool, I guess.
Nope. I listen, NFL Plus. You can watch it on that if it's if it's a national televised stuff. I'm not going to fall under the this is an exclusive streaming
Yeah.
game. I'm not. No.
Not you.
No. I didn't.
Not
I didn't,
you.
I held out during
I
Christmas.
think it's also that some
all
other
I did was
services
watch
are
the
getting,
halftime show for that Texans game. I watched Beyonce and then I tuned right back out.
I think it's also just the gap of cost on some of these other platforms. Like, I mean, granted, I watch a lot of anime, so for me, Crunchyroll means something. But like the fact that Crunchyroll's like $9, and I think Paramount's like $7 or whatever. I
Sorry.
get to watch
I'm-
all the old
I'm-
Star Trek.
I'm only laughing because there's someone on YouTube who's like an hour behind the show and watching it, and he's like, "Wrong again, Jeremy. Eagles sacked them over and over. Didn't settle for pressure like the Lions." He's commenting on that right now, which is sorry. I think that's funny. Like, I don't even.
Well,
know
he'll learn
what
about
you're
this in an hour as he keeps watching.
Yeah.
I wonder what I wonder what
saw
their
him
next
being like, "Are
Netflix
you going to
takes
be a
will
man or a small kitty?" Like,
The weird like. If you
you're
want
at
to
home
disagree with
sucking
some
on
of my,
wings, dude.
if you want to disagree with some of my takes, like even if listen, I was on this podcast a week ago saying I'm not fully against Myles Garrett. Like I'm tempted.
No, it'd be fun. It'd
And
be very fun.
and I remain that way, to be absolutely clear. And so if you're disagreeing and you say, hey, no, I think they should go all in for Myles Garrett, that's fine. I accept that. I don't think it's a wild take. But like the criticisms that come back to me that are like, you're in Sheila's pocket. It's just like, what?
Dude,
I was like the only person that criticized last year's draft class. Find me another person anywhere that was as hard on the Lions draft class last year than I was.
if we were in Sheila's pocket, we'd have more than 74 viewers right now.
I'd get more than I usually get on my monthly paycheck.
The production value of this show, while good, would be
We would have
even
an actual.
greater.
I'd be able to hire an actual producer who could get in our ear about like stats that we just repeatedly get wrong.
I don't have any alerts to get to. Just a couple follows.
Recording
DeBruce,
stopped.
There we go.
Madsky, Safe, and
Ugh.
Metalcore Monster. Thank you for the follows on
man.
Twitch.
Jeremy, you ready for the snowstorm on Thursday?
It's Wednesday, isn't it?
Well, yeah, like Wednesday night into
Yeah.
Thursday morning.
No, I'm not happy about it.
I
For
don't
two
know.
reasons.
I don't know how much you guys are getting down there, but
Not
it
as
said
much.
it said 100% chance of snow, which seems likely, and it said 5 to 8 inches for us.
Yeah, I think I'm closer to like 3 to 5, but it's hard to say.
And then there's
don't know.
more that's coming on Saturday.
Yeah, it bums me out because one, I was doing a whole like get together to go disc golfing on Thursday. That's almost certainly going to be canceled now.
Yeah.
And then
Hold on. One last thing, and I swear I will stop looking at YouTube at this. What fucking company line? You're fucking stupid, dude. What fucking company line? What company line? What does that even mean? You're fucking delusional, dude. Go the fuck outside. What company line?
We might have to boost the the rating on YouTube this week.
What fucking company line? What does
Oh.
that mean? What the fuck does that mean,
Okay.
dude? You've just
All
been
right.
sitting in there shitting on us for 2 hours. What the fuck does that mean? Company line. You're fucking delusional in the head. You need to be put in an institution.
Okay, relax.
All right.
I'm done.
It's just a YouTube commenter.
I know.
And I'm thinking
I
that's
am-
probably the rum. Yeah.
Yes, it is the rum.
Arkham. Just the word Arkham.
Arkham.
I don't know. Is there anything else we need to
Get him,
take care of?
Eric.
Anything we didn't talk about? Oh, this was in the podcast breakdown. We didn't get to it. Do we want to talk at all about Dan Campbell not being coach of the year?
I don't care. But was he second? I believe he was second, right?
Yep. And then
Yeah, that's fine. I think this is a problem because we talked, Jeremy, about how imperfect the award has been, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like it was already set when unrealistically low expectations of the Vikings were set, and then they passed them, and then I think this kind of because I'm going to try to dovetail this into Josh Allen being over Lamar Jackson, which a lot of people seem shocked about, but
the reason everyone was shocked about that was because they voted Lamar Jackson first team All Pro.
Sure.
Same voters.
I understand that, but narratives middle of the season, very hard to knock down. And for the most part, Josh Allen was still, even though the AP vote went the way it is, was still, for most people, the mind of the most valuable player and had everything to back it up for him to continue to be the most valuable player. Likewise, Kevin O'Connell, everyone had made up their mind around week 10 or so that he was going to be coach of the year. I think we need to just trust those first blushes a little bit more. Just how these awards work.
Give and take, Ryan. I've talked about it a bunch already, so I don't have much I want to rehash.
Didn't was Vrabel coach of the year in 2021?
Sounds rightish.
Yeah. I mean that was a
Yes.
that was an award
Yes, it
that was an award that I felt like he ended up winning because they got the top seed in the AFC and they had the most injured team in football. So like I don't want to say that just like early narratives take root and they're not able to be pulled up because then why didn't Brock Purdy win MVP last year?
I think if you like crush it, I think the problem was nothing really took away from Kevin O'Connell until probably the very last game of the year. And at that point, the argument would then be, well, we can't really fault him over one game.
But it wasn't one game. It was
I
losing
understand.
to the Lions twice and then also losing the NFC North. But which ultimately leads me to just be like the same take that I was championing from Ben Raven, which was Okay, like I guess you guys always have that to keep you warm at night. That Kevin O'Connell Coach of the Year award when you went 0-2 versus the Lions, you lost the NFC North, and then you got embarrassed in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, again, this is all coming back to nearly everyone I would see on the national level talking about the Vikings saying they might win 4 games this year.
Right.
Which, like, again, that's something these guys set up for themselves, and maybe we should have been open to, just because that's not what they were at the first blush, maybe we've completely overreacted on something, but that just never happened.
It's kind of clear, though, that I think people don't like Dan Campbell. I think people who vote don't like Dan Campbell. Even though he finished second, how many ballots was he left off, Jeremy?
2. But
how is
fifth.
Dan Campbell either the 5th or not one of the top 5 coaches in the NFL?
It's
they were the number 1 team in football with a 222 point differential. Right. And like that is the aggravating thing I think for me as a fan is like if it's about outperforming expectations, then why wasn't he coach of the year in 2022?
Right. That's the frustrating part for me is that Dan Campbell will now never win this award.
Because I said coming into this year, the only way Dan Campbell's probably going to win this award is if they finish with the top seed in the NFC and they're the best team in football. Mm-hmm. And that happened, right. And he still got voted 5th on some ballots, and he was left off other ballots.
Yeah,
that's insane. That's crazy. But congratulations to Kevin O'Connell. I hope JJ McCarthy works out.
It is kind of that's something I'm going to be very fascinated to watch, because I think you're right, Ryan, that they're going to walk away from Sam Darnold, and JJ McCarthy could be anything with too many knee injuries. He could even be Sam Darnold.
God, are you doing the Family Guy thing right now?
I thought you'd appreciate that.
There's only one moderator in here who would appreciate that.
But yeah, the last thing I want to say about Dan is I don't know if there's people that dislike Dan Campbell. I think when you vote on Coach of the Year, you're just kind of looking for the brand new thing, the next hot thing. And if we were to include the playoffs, like it wouldn't have been Dan Campbell, it would have been Dan Quinn, right? Dan Quinn would have won it, and he probably made a good enough case anyways, right? A lot of it is your work with a quarterback. So Sam Darnold and his success gets credited to Kevin O'Connell. Jane Daniels gets a lot of credit to Dan Quinn. I mean, you'd think maybe a little bit of credit would go to Dan Campbell for turning Jared Goff's career around, but apparently that only goes to your offensive coordinator.
It feels like just because he's not coming from a certain coordinating background too,
right?
That there's this idea that he's not doing.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's
anything.
It'll be this year is critical into the perception of Dan Campbell, because all of the offensive success is being given to Ben Johnson, all of it, and I can't say for sure that he deserves it all or he doesn't deserve it all, but I've talked to enough people in that building who consistently say Dan Campbell doesn't get enough credit for offensive game planning.
Sure.
Like, yes, he's the rah-rah type. Yes, he's an expert motivator. Yes, he is great at finding staff that fit, finding what staff doesn't fit, and building a coaching staff and a succession plan and all of that to get everyone motivated, all your young players developed, not all of them, a lot of your young players developed. But I do think he is underestimated, certainly on a national level, probably even on a local level, for how much of an offensive-minded coach he is and how much that has had an effect on the Lions' success over the last 3 years.
I'd agree with that, yeah.
I mean, he had enough confidence in himself to fire Anthony Lynn.
Yeah.
I think there is something to the fact that we also just had a Super Bowl won by one of these coaches who is not, like Sirianni's background isn't, was he I think he was a defensive coordinator way back, but like nobody thinks of Sirianni as like doing anything.
Who's shoop-de-whoop? Here comes Mr. Company line to carry Dan's water.
I don't know if that is a tongue-in-cheek. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's on Twitch, so of course it's.
I thought maybe it was someone from YouTube trying to like
Who came
poison
over
the-
and-
The guy had
Right?
YouTube's like, oh, I got to him. I got to him. Oh, cool. And then like talk about other YouTubers like we give a fuck.
Also, wait, I want to make sure I didn't. It wasn't misspoke, but he didn't fire Anthony Lynn. He relieved him of his duties and reassigned him within
Yes.
the organization, right?
He fired him.
well, what happened at the end of the year?
Well, eventually, but I mean, like,
Yeah.
he early
Demoted
enough
him.
in his rookie season as being a head coach
Yeah. He
was
demoted.
like, I'll take over the offense.
Yeah.
This isn't working.
And it improved.
And it got better.
Yeah.
Gave runway to Ben Johnson.
Yep.
It is still
be a fraud.
it's still kind of crazy to me. I was talking with some people this weekend about, once again, the craze for coordinators to be coaches and everything. And we were talking once again about Brian Flores, how he had both Zach Taylor and Ben Johnson in the same building, and the Dolphins offense looked the way it did.
Yeah, why can't Brian Flores get hired somewhere else?
Right?
I'm getting sick of this.
It's because of what happened in Miami, right?
No, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
he had Zach Taylor and Ben Johnson on the same offensive staff, and the Dolphins' offense was garbage every year he was there.
Well, I'm talking about the drama.
Let's talk about Bill Belichick
Oh,
accidentally texting the wrong Brian
Right.
and congratulating him for the New York Giants job.
oh.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
By the way, did you see what what Belichick's girlfriend was wearing? I think it was it a UNC thing or was it the Super Bowl? I forget where, but like she had a shirt that was Super Bowl. Sorry, I just need to make sure I got it. So she had a Super Bowl 51 World Champions Atlanta Falcons T-shirt.
So like an early print after
One of those that they
The
would we
28-3
joke that they're
game?
sending to Africa kind of shirts. Yeah.
Was she alive for that Super Bowl?
Ryan was alive for the Super Bowl, so yes.
Could she sign herself out of school during that Super Bowl?
Did she use her allowance to buy that shirt?
Look,
Can we keep going with this?
that shirt is perfect enough. You know what?
Like Nick the Greek is alluding to, what could Bill Belichick have taken offense at that halftime show?
He's the coach of North Carolina right now. He better be ready for.
Let me get to some of those alerts real quick because Nick the Greek is dropping bits everywhere. Nick the Greek 100 bits says Jared Goff's baby will not go hungry. We didn't talk about that. Was
What?
Jared Goff distracted during the playoff run by his yet to be born child?
Oh, stop.
Another
Stop, because you send these out and these seedlings land on Woodward.
You're like a daffodil just being blown apart, and we don't know where the seeds are gonna land.
Are you what is the effect? The
Butterfly effect.
butterfly effect. Are you butterfly affecting me?
I thought you were going to say the Mandela effect. And I was like, what am I misremembering right now?
Nick
There was
Greek,
no
another-
cornucopia in the fruit of the loom.
That's lies.
Wait, there. Oh wait, yeah,
There was never a cornucopia.
yeah. It was just a pile of fruit.
JT Sam, how dare you? Nick the Greek, another 100 bits says Jahmyr Gibbs is Brad Galley's baby. 100 bits from Nick the Greek says Bill Belichick's key is a minor.
By the way, Mark on YouTube is still an hour behind and reacting to whatever we're saying.
it's very funny to me. And then Nick the Greek, another bit says Not Like Us is about Coach Bill. There you go. He agrees.
All right.
Maybe
Well,
she's into the age gap. I'm just saying. Some are.
All right.
Some
I think
aren't.
it's time to get out of here. Good luck Mark Daly for watching the rest of the podcast. Hope you can catch up soon. Maybe next time watch us on like 1.75 speed so that you can catch up to the live comments and your comments aren't weirdly out of place in the middle of a podcast. But hey, you can see him over here. Like your name's over there now. That's cool. Talking about something that we're not currently talking about.
Watching Chris go on a rant about what the company line is at 1.75 speed sounds like something I want to do.
So I found out how the new fast forward works in Audition, and let me tell you, it's very funny.
As a reminder, we will be live for the midweek mailbag, me and Eric, around 9:30, 10 o'clock a.m. Wednesday morning. So join us then. Same place, not same time, just same place. That might do it for live streams this week.
Might I suggest a raid target for today?
Sure. We haven't raided anybody in a while. What you got?
So his name is this is not in any kind of Lions territory. His name is George. If you look him up on YouTube, he's got a channel by the name of Super Bunny Hop. I'm going to DM the name. I'm going to send the channel to Jeremy. He is the person who I have never met a person more intelligent about speaking about video games, especially Metal Gear Solid, as George. George has gone through a lot of tough stuff.
And it's just,
what?
I pulled up the stream and it's just like
it's just starting. It's going to be starting.
Oh, okay.
He does Metal Gear Mondays where he goes through old Metal Gear games, usually with some weird, insane challenges on. The point and why I'm trying to bring him up is that he's got a lot of financial problems in his life right now. He's got several videos about kind of the personal struggles he's gone through and just kind of his attitude about the industry as well. So he stopped making YouTube stuff outside of like talking about the Odyssey, but he's an incredibly smart man and he's a very kind man. And I really I don't think I've met a mind like his that talks about games. So I would really like people to support him. And if you have some money throw him some money his way on Twitch. It's a channel. He's a channel that means a lot to me.
That's all I need to hear.
Super Bunny Hop. And I think he's starting right now when he's playing Metal Gear Solid 3 once again.
At the very least, even if you don't have money to give, it always helps raids just to stick around for a little bit, just to give them a little bit more viewership. More viewers in their stream means they're more findable by other people searching for things to watch on Twitch. So even if you don't have time to watch them right now, you don't have money to give away, maybe just follow the raid, keep the stream up on your computer, on your phone, walk away from it. Just be there for someone. It's always nice to reward the people that we're rating in any way that you can. So it's a cool thing about Twitch is growing communities beyond football or games or whatever you're into.
Yeah, he lists some of his troubles in the bottom, but at the same time, he is a real journalist doing real, like probably the best talk about games I've ever seen on YouTube. And a friend and I look at his old videos all the time. And like, I don't know. He doesn't know me from Adam, but I want more people to know about him, I guess is what I'm saying.
All right. Well, the raid's about to go through here on Twitch. For those of you on YouTube, just hang in there for a second. We're going to do that raid. Just make sure it goes through and then we'll get out of here as well for you guys. So anyways, Twitch, thanks. Love you all. We'll see you soon. Okay. Boom.
Thank you.
Went through. All right. See y'all later, YouTube. I know all the arguments were in love for most of y'all. So we're not taking it too personally. I hope you guys aren't taking our takes too personally either. We'll see you guys Wednesday morning.